I mean, what's Pro Football Focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Ready to get into it?
Yeah.
All right. We're going team by team.
I would be very careful about slinging stuff.
Am I going to get sued?
You got legal on this?
That sends you out on the right note. PFF sucks. Have a great day, everybody.
Wow.
Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson, live on YouTube. Happy Eclipse Day.
For the eclipse. Live for the eclipse.
We're ready to go.
Can't see anything.
Can't see a thing.
I can't even see the lights shining through this
If
thing.
I look up like this, yeah, the lights don't even come through here.
Right, nothing.
Rocking our Eclipse glasses here, if you're listening. And ready to go, man.
Yeah.
For the Eclipse, we've got the... Can't wear these during the show because really can't see anything.
No, really can't see it.
Make it very difficult.
Yep.
But we're celebrating here with glasses and donuts.
Eclipse donuts.
Thanks to Holtman's Donuts over here. This is not an ad. This is
No, it's
unprompted.
not.
They, full disclosure, they refused, actually, to sponsor us.
You'd like it to be an ad, but
Yeah,
it's not happening.
But here we are anyway. They have Eclipse Donuts. Look at this thing. Yeah. The Eclipse Donut
Good.
is over at Holtman's here in Cincinnati.
Did we figure out what it was?
Some sort of lemon custard. I know there's Oreo on top.
Yeah.
Oreo's good.
Oreo's good.
So the Eclipse Donut here, we're celebrating with this and with the glasses.
I think it was just regular custard, but a suspicious shade of yellow.
Oh, no. Oh, did you tell me that they dyed it yellow?
I mean, it's yellow.
Or did they tell
So
me?
I assume it's dyed because
You said that,
typically custard isn't that color.
She just said custard, and I think they, dyed it yellow for us. So, yeah, I mean, it was good. Might be eating it during the show here.
I already ate mine. It's good.
Oh, yours is all gone?
Yeah,
Mine's
yeah.
halfway done. So anyway, happy Eclipse Day to everybody, and happy Mock Draft Monday. We're going to get to it, and it's going to be my mock draft today.
Ooh.
So I'm going to do it live. I did not prepare for this at all.
No.
We're doing it live. I'm still kind of scared of what I'm going to do with Denver. I don't like Denver's position
Don't like Denver.
in this draft at 12.
Well,
I don't
so
like the quarterback position here.
The only preparation you did for this was by essentially telling me that you like everybody in the first round. All the players are good.
Yeah, let's get into this take here. I tweeted this out the other day, and I believe that the consensus draft board this year is solid. I believe the consensus top 20, 25 players in this draft, I don't have major objections to them. Certainly some I like better than others.
Right.
But
This is viewed through the prism of, in previous drafts, you thought Tyree Wilson, instead of being a top 10 player, was ranked 187th or whatever on the big board.
Correct.
And Trayvon Walker, who ended up going number one overall, you were like, he's a second-round player.
that's right.
So in the context of that, you were looking at this year's first round, in theory, and going, yeah, they're all good players.
Yeah, I don't have – there's not a lot of strong takes. And now that's either because it is a good, solid draft, or just right now you're not hearing rumors. The Trayvon Walker rumors, I think, started in March. I mean, it was after the workout, but then it started to, grow around this time that, oh, he's not just going mid-first, he's going to go number one overall,
Right.
and he might actually overtake Aiden Hutchinson. And that was just – that seemed crazy at the time, and I still think it's crazy. The Tyree Wilson stuff, again, there was people, we're still playing a little phone tag, DM tag with Chris Sims. Like last year, Sims and a couple others really liked Tyree Wilson. Like there were really debates about Tyree Wilson versus Will Anderson. To me, that was crazy. I don't think there's anything crazy here.
Yeah, so
in the top.
Even if you just restrict it to edge rushers, like the Latu or versus Dallas Turner, is sort of being viewed a bit like those previous ones.
Yeah.
Where it's Tyree Wilson versus Will Anderson or Trayvon Walker versus Aiden Hutchinson, but they're not. Like, it's wildly different than that. The Latu's part of it is sort of similar in that he's the guy with amazing production and it turns out is also a better athlete than people gave him credit for, whereas Dallas Turner is more the crazy athlete. But Dallas Turner is also very productive. Like he's way more productive than the other guys that were the athletic side of that conversation.
Right, I completely agree, and I think we'll get into it when we start making the picks. But the idea on Latu is interesting, and our friend Jim Nagy was tweeting about it the other day. I think people are half baking in Latu's injury history, and basically, if we'll get into it, I think at some point.
But I do think that his injury history thing, to me, that's almost certainly a binary evaluation. Like, you're either cool
Right.
with it or you're not. And so it's not dropping him in the first round, in your opinion, I don't think.
That's my opinion on it. I would love to know if doctors would chime in on Latu and say, okay, he had the medical injury with the neck, right?
Yeah.
And is that something that could pop up and not necessarily end his career, but actually make him miss time, right? Is that something that's a chronic, you're going to miss playing time, or is it, okay, at some point your career could end because of this thing could pop up again? If its career could end, to me, that's binary, right? Like, you either don't want to make that investment or you do. If it's something that, you might miss, like Jonathan Allen had a shoulder injury when he came out of Alabama a few years ago. He went from being a top 5 pick to like 17 overall.
Right.
And he's generally been pretty durable. He's been fine.
Do you remember, what was his name? McNeil, the left tackle from the Chargers.
Marcus McNeil.
Yeah. So when he was drafted, was his like a back injury or something? When he was drafted, the thing on him was they basically knew that this would be, he will only play for like 7 years, right? He's not going to be your 10-year starter, your 15. He's got like a 7-year NFL career, but for the 7 years, he's probably going to be really good. So what's that worth? That was like the conversation with him. Whatever his injury was, at the time was seen as this is a degenerative, chronic thing that will eventually end his career. We're just not 100% sure how long down the road that is or how much it'll hamper it until that. So that was a really interesting example of an injury that was seen at the time as this will eventually stop him playing in the NFL. We just don't know how much runway you've got on that.
If you've got 6 or 7 years, it's probably okay.
Sure, because you're dealing in contract terms, right?
The other real example before we get into it, Caleb Farley a couple years ago was extremely talented, but he had injury concerns that, like, hey, this is going to be nagging, right? Chronic might not be the best word, but a nagging injury, multiple injuries year in, year out, and that's kind of what's happened with Caleb Farley. And we talked about that a lot. Like, he's got this back problem that is a serious issue. I don't know that Latu's is that. So
he's played 2 years since the injuries. Like,
right.
Once he got away from the team that was shutting him down, he's now played 2 basically full-time seasons without missing.
And I will say the age thing does kind of matter, right? I mentioned age matters. I think if you're just looking at production and you say, hey, this guy produced at 21, 22 years old, which is different than doing it at 19 or 20. Not so much an upside thing, but Latu's older than Dallas Turner, so theoretically more room to grow and more impressive when you're producing at a younger age. So again, I don't have any strong hatred, right? Like, in past years, I would do this mock draft and I would say, well, I'm not taking Tyree Wilson in the top 10 to 15. He's going to fall
in the first round.
So the whole mock draft is going to look ridiculous compared to everyone else's.
Right.
And I feel like the chalk mock is pretty solid unless the NFL does that whole, like, this guy's number 40 on the consensus board, like the Alex Leatherwood or whatever, where a guy comes way up.
I think in a way that's good, because in previous years, I think you would lose some, I don't want to say credibility, but there were a lot of people that would tune out immediately when you're like, oh, this mock's ridiculous. There's no Tyree Wilson in the top 15 or whatever, right? That's all they could look at. They wouldn't get past that. Whereas now, you're going to have a mock that at least looks vaguely similar to everybody else's, so somebody can actually, pay attention to the slight differences.
All right.
So anyway, hang on. Last setting the stage point. This is what Steve Palazzolo, general manager armed with the model, would do.
Mostly. No, not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Well, no, why
because
not?
I would still say if I was staying true to the model, there's only 20 first rounders for me.
Okay.
So obviously there's going to have to be other picks, and I'm not necessarily going to go directly in order. So
yeah, but let's assume it's what Steve Palazzolo with the model would do without being able to trade out of the first round.
Mostly.
Because you're going to reach a point where if you can't trade out, you got to pick somebody.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Right.
So I'm gonna reach at times when I wouldn't. I would be yearning to get out of there. You know what I mean? So all right, let's get started. Mock draft time. Bears at the top. Caleb Williams. No discussion. Let's take Caleb.
Solid.
Discuss.
Yeah.
I have nothing else to discuss. I've got things to debate, though. I'll be honest right now. I'm coming around to the fact at 3 and 4, Patriots and Cardinals, that I might want to trade out when we get there. So I'll take Caleb Williams at the top. I think that's pretty clear. Interested to see what I do at 9. Can't wait to see what I do at 9 for the Bears. I can't wait to see what's available in my mock draft here. And then Washington Commanders at 2. I'll just say I've been on the Drake May bandwagon here.
Yep.
I've been on May at 2. You got people trying to talk you out of it. The more people you talk to, the fewer people that like Drake May. People I trust.
Yeah.
Not that it matters whether I trust them or not. They're not great QB. Nobody's a good QB evaluator, right?
Nobody's good.
Nobody's good. Somebody's out there, right? There's hundreds and hundreds of scouts and evaluators. Somebody's out there who, if you stacked up his quarterbacks historically,
Let's just nail them all.
had Mahomes 1 in 17,
Yeah.
had Allen and Lamar 1 and 2 in 18, had Daniel Jones and Dwayne Haskins as third rounders in 19, had 20 should be Burrow, Herbert, Tua, right? Had that. Somebody had that. Now, not every team, because
And Jordan Love.
Jordan, oh yeah, in Love and Hurts,
Where he should have been. First rounder.
and was it? Yeah, had them all.
Yeah. And Hurts, yeah.
Somebody had all of them
Sure. Probably.
somewhere, right? Like some assistant GM in the NFC West or something had these QB rankings, but you only pick one quarterback every couple of years, so you don't see it,
Right.
right? But somebody had these rankings.
I mean, it's probably a current GM who's got there just off the back of what he's done with quarterbacks. Like, when he goes in for interviews for the last 6 years, he's just been going,
Yeah.
holding up a sheet. This was my order. Nailed it.
Look, there's a date on it and everything.
Right.
I didn't just print this out.
Right.
Somebody has that, but
I've cracked the
but it's
code
tough.
on quarterbacks.
Right.
And then, the first time he gets a shot,
So-
he ends up drafting the bust.
There's no QB list out there that's public that has that list, that has the perfect list.
No, everyone, like, people go through runs where they get it perfect and then the wheels fall off with, a crazy pick.
Yeah, and I said
Including us.
I said this at Sloan. Now I know I've said this at Sloan when I was on the panel. They said what was a failure in analytics or something that didn't go as you planned, and I was honest. I said I really thought that PFF grading would be directionally really good for quarterbacks, and early on, it was. It was like, okay, don't ever touch Christian Hackenberg, right?
Yeah.
It's so bad, don't even touch. And look,
I think
there's
it might
signal.
be directionally on that.
Yeah, there's signal. if a guy never grades above 65,
Yeah, it's
ever,
unlikely.
Probably don't take him in the second round.
Right.
But I really thought it was just going to be, perfect. Not perfect, but like really, really good. All right, guys who grade well are going to, because you just look at it, eyeball test, like, oh, Christian Ponder didn't play that well in college, and Jake Locker didn't play that well in college, and Blaine Gabbert didn't play that well in college, and they all went really high. That's the draft we'll do, by the way, 2011. We'll do the watch along
Again.
for 11.
Screen.
You're going to show up. So anyway, all that said, all I have for QB takes is take them.
Okay.
Take quarterbacks.
The order is
And I'm going
relevant?
to take Drake May still
okay.
with Washington. I'm still going to take Drake May. I don't feel good about any of these.
So this is where, like, you're like a week or two behind me in terms of the conclusion I was coming to, which is that it's just Caleb Williams and then everyone else has problems. Like, the more you dive into everybody else's tape, the more you're like, I don't really know that the order matters that much. It's just none of these guys are Caleb.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm behind you on that. I knew Caleb Williams was number one.
Right, but this is just, you were banging the table a lot more loudly for Drake May, and now I don't know if you're just crumbling with the noise or if you're coming to the same conclusion.
It's a lot of time.
Like, the more you watch Drake May, the more you are like, okay, yeah, the stuff he does good is great. Why is there so much bad in this tape?
Yeah, look, my original take on, I'm not coming off that too much. I think the stuff that he's struggling with, which is simple footwork, some layups, I think those things are fixable.
Sure.
I think he can shore that up.
But
he
it's
is
the fact
young.
that you have to fix it.
And here's the other part, too, when I've talked to people. Usually, like when Justin Herbert came out, people were talking about, he's he's kind of aloof. He's kind of a, whatever, like a weirder personality. And that scares teams or whatever. And it hasn't really mattered. He's played well. Say what you want about the wins and losses. With Drake May, I thought I might hear some of that, too. Like, not only does he have the footwork concerns, but, he's a little aloof. He's a little, what? I'm hearing he's a good kid. Like, he's going to work hard. Like, people feel good about all those types of things.
Yeah.
He's just a redshirt sophomore. Now, I like that. That's something to work with. I think he's got good playmaking ability. He can throw on the run. He can move a little bit. Love the way he throws to the middle of the field.
Move a lot. Like I think he's a lot more athletic than people are crediting him for in this process. Like that's one area where I think he's being wildly underrated.
Remember that history too. I would say off the top of my head, Justin Fields, Josh Allen, and Daniel Jones all became better, more effective NFL runners than whatever they showed in college.
Yeah, Daniel Jones is the he's obviously not Lamar or whatever, but like he can beat Daniel Jones in an offense in terms of rushing threat.
So I'm doing it. I'm taking Drake May at number 2. And then the Patriots might have some exciting or unexpected changes coming to their life.
Oh, yeah?
In 2024.
Like who?
Well, they have a secret weapon to help them face those challenges with more confidence, and it's a great term life insurance policy, Sam. That's right. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to protect your family's financial future so you can focus on what's ahead, knowing your family's protected if something else unexpected happens. Fabric was designed by parents for parents to help you get high quality, surprisingly affordable term life insurance policy in less than 10 minutes. Fabric has flexible policies that fit your family and your budget, like $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day. Get your personalized quote in just minutes and then apply when it's convenient for you. It's all online and on your schedule. You can go from start to covered in less than 10 minutes with no health exam required. So join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to protect their family. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Insurance Company, not available in certain states. Price subject to underwriting health questions. So because of what I said about the draft earlier,
yes,
the fact that if I had 2 picks in the top 20, I feel really confident I'm going to get 2 solid starters in this particular draft. Feel pretty good about the depth here up to pick 20, 25. If I'm New England at 3, and I'll say the same thing with Arizona at 4, I might consider the trade out. To me, the only thing,
having just given a big diatribe about just take quarterbacks.
Yeah, but just take them as in you don't need to have. I don't think you need to have like strong convictions about your rankings. I'm not saying just take them blindly in lieu of everything else. I think New England, if they didn't have, if you're the billionaire, play billionaire for a minute here. Mm-hmm. Or you're Robert Kraft. Okay. To me, the only thing keeping New England from potentially trading down here is Robert Kraft. You're getting a little bit older, Robert. You have
I think you'll find that my sneaker game suggests otherwise.
Your sneaker game suggests we're staying young. Robert, you're getting older. Bill just left. You're fighting for your own legacy here, right? Tommy took a Super Bowl elsewhere. Bill couldn't keep the legacy going.
No.
So now it's on you, and you want to show that you had a hand in the dynasty. You want to show this. What?
Steered it.
You steered the
Architect.
You steered
puppet master.
You steered the whole thing. So I need to know from you, are you going to be impatient with this thing and say, I got to get my next quarterback. I need that guy right now because Bill's left and we can't have another down year. Right? It makes me look bad.
He's out here at Washington.
Yeah. Calling plays.
Yeah.
He's just being
coaching up the Huskies.
He's a helicopter parent.
Yes.
He's like, oh, my son's got his first real job. Let me get out there. Let me help him.
Make sure he's not screwing it up.
Let me help him. Come on, don't interrupt me, Robert.
Sorry.
Will you be patient here? Or, given the state of our franchise right now, we need playmakers on both sides of the ball. We don't have the infrastructure for this quarterback. We have holes at both tackle spots. We have the worst playmaking situation in the AFC, maybe in the NFL. We're bottom 5. Let's get the infrastructure first. Let's trade down. I actually kind of like the second wave of quarterbacks, kind of like Michael Penix. Maybe we'll grab him in the second wave. The second wave in this draft could be mid-first round if I wasn't drafting, but if other teams were. Will you be patient with that? To me, that's the discussion that's happening in New England right now. And I'm going to take the QB guy, but I do think, maybe I'm coming around to it more, your situation does matter. And if they can accumulate a couple first-round picks rather than sitting at 3, I think it's more attractive than I thought it was in previous years.
Yeah, I mean, I would want my quarterback, but I could be persuaded. If you as Gerard Mayo in this case come up with a compelling argument that putting a quarterback in this current situation would be a recipe for failure, then I can be convinced.
Yeah, it's not necessarily just that, but it's like what if Minnesota's got 11-23, and what if we got 11-23, and at 11 we might be able to take Michael Penix. I don't know if the difference between Jaden Daniels and Michael Penix Jr. is that drastic. I get the upside with Daniels and his running ability, and he throws the ball really well. But what if we had Penix plus pick 23?
Well, Penix is the guy now he's the dude whose stock has been just on a roller coaster ride this entire process. We had this conversation about if you take out that national championship game, he's top 15, borderline top 10, and then he went from being that to like, oh, he's a second round shot for somebody that misses out or passes on a quarterback in the first round. And now we're back to, hey guys, a lot of NFL teams actually think he's right up there with the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in this draft. Don't be shocked if he still ends up getting taken in the first round somewhere. Like, by the way, Atlanta just went on a big trip to see Michael Penix Jr. work out with like the entire staff. So I know they got Kirk Cousins, but so do you think that Michael Penix Jr. could actually end up as the way we thought he was before that game? Still a top 15 player, like somewhere for that quarterback row, Denver, Raiders, Vikings. Is Penix actually an option there?
I always try to be careful with the information that I've been given.
Lion season.
Right? Well, I'm careful with the information that I've been given that I can't completely just blurt out.
Yeah.
And so what I saw someone else say this week, maybe it was Breer. I think Breer said, I'm surprised at how much the coaches have liked Michael Penix Jr. more than the scouts. Right? Because, again, timing of the season. The scouts are feeding all the information, right? It's their board, essentially, through March. In April, the coaches start to get involved more, and the board moves, and the coaches have their different opinions. So the coaches seem to like Michael Penix more than the scouts for whatever reason. And so that's the part that's interesting to me. And, that's some of the rumblings that I heard, that maybe the coaches might see Penix as a top 10, top 15 type of guy, and the scouts don't. So we talked about this with Josh Lucas on, the other day, the idea of like scouts and coaches, personnel versus coaches in those debates and having, different takes on players. So I don't think it's crazy that Penix goes pretty high or goes in the top 15 when these teams are available. So all that said, should I trade out, Sam? What do you think? Like, if you're the billionaire, what do you think, Robert? Just give me feedback as Robert Kraft. Do you feel like he would be okay with a trade down? Or if I told you, I think the top quarterback's Caleb Williams, number 2's Drake May, we're now sitting here, I think the third best quarterback's Jaden Daniels. I'm going to give you QB3, or we could trade down with the Vikings 11-23.
The answer to all these questions is always boring because it depends. Like,
I'm giving you our rankings. We're in the room right now.
Okay.
And I'm saying I'm telling you this is QB3.
Right. So our rankings is QB3, but it doesn't tell me like how good is QB3. Do we think QB3 can work, or is QB3 like this is the guy we don't want to touch because we think this is a 2 QB draft?
He could be good. I think he's a tier. I think he's a little bit above 4, 5, 6 in QBs. Okay. He's above. I mean, he's a tier. We'll say he's a tier above.
Right. So if he can work, then my question is, why wouldn't we take him?
Because of the infrastructure.
Right.
We're in the AFC East where they have old man Rodgers.
I'm like, how bad is our infrastructure? We made it work before without superstars everywhere.
Well, we did.
Right.
Well, I'm the GM. I'm not the coach. As the GM, my job's personnel. And I'll tell you this, the last GM who doubled as a coach failed as GM.
Ooh.
I'll tell you that.
Yeah?
I mean, he's out of here now. We could talk about him.
Sure.
So he's gone. He failed as GM. He left us with no offensive line, nobody to throw to. And I'll tell you this, the defense, look, Gerard Mayo's great. I'm sure he's going to do a fine job. The old GM could coach a little bit, so we could coach up those lesser players. I would still rather a more talented bunch on the defensive side of the ball. So we're 6 to 8 players away from being competitive in the AFC East.
Okay. Well, then my next question is, what's the offer on the table? Because
11-23. 11-23 would get our next tier of quarterback in Penix, potentially. We'll see how it plays out. And then pick 23, we're talking about another starter. We got to keep chipping away adding starters to this roster.
Then okay, so it's your call. And on your head be it.
That's good. That's good. We should have had a whole GM segment for that one. This whole show's me as the GM. A lot of pressure here. I'm going to trade down with Minnesota then.
All right.
Patriots fans are going to hate me for this.
Yeah, probably.
They want the QB. I'll just do 11 and 23. I'm not running it through the chart. There might be some future picks or some non-first rounders to add to it, but give me
just for simplicity.
For simplicity right now, it's 11 and 23. So Minnesota's going to come get Jaden Daniels because they're more desperate than I am. Me the GM of the Vikings is more desperate than me the GM for the Patriots.
Okay, so now you GM is Quasi. Who are you picking?
I'll take Jaden Daniels.
All right. Jaden Daniels, huh?
Yeah. Where is he? Jaden Daniels going number 3.
It's always disconcerting how far down
to the Minnesota Vikings. No, it's on Trevor's board. He's got May 2 and Daniels a little bit lower. All right, so now Arizona's up on the clock at 4. So I went Minnesota comes up for Jaden Daniels. Patriots are now going to pick at 11.
You're not buying the J.J. McCarthy's hype.
Not to the Vikings. I think that hype is there.
Well, this is you, the GM.
Oh, me, the GM?
Yeah.
Not over Jaden Daniels. Here's the reason why we're hearing J.J. McCarthy hype is because the top 3 teams all need quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And people are just deducing.
Well, no.
Well, it's Williams, May, Daniels. The next place that the Vikings could go is 4. Therefore, the 4th quarterback on the board is J.J. McCarthy.
No, it's not because, number one...
I don't know that it's coming from inside Minnesota's building, is what I'm saying.
Number one, we've been hearing from the beginning that the NFL, with a broad brush, views J.J. McCarthy more favorably than deadbeats like us.
Yeah.
Number two, completely independent of the Vikings, all the talk recently has been about, he's not out of the question for 2 or 3 overall. Forget Minnesota. He could be the second quarterback off the board because that's the talk that's going on. So this isn't a how do the Vikings view J.J. McCarthy thing. It's not unreasonable to ask why is he behind Jaden Daniels, because certainly a lot of insider rumblings, albeit in lying season, is saying that he is.
Yeah. I think the Vikings connection is more just the fact that we think they can go to 4. The Vikings connection in particular. But you're right. The hype is all over the place for McCarthy. I guess I'm not necessarily there yet.
There's a lot of data to back it up. McCarthy's problem is a sample size issue, right?
Yeah.
Over the last 2 years combined, he put the kind of season together in terms of volume. 2 of his seasons equals 1 of other people's seasons, right? So from a volume standpoint, he's really low. But each of the last 2 seasons, 21 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, and then 22 to 4, 9 yards per attempt last year, a PFF grade of 90.6, and critically, unlike Jaden Daniels, who has this massive red flag of the dude has a sack rate that's biblically terrible. Puts him in a list of people have been drawing up sort of how does sack rate project to being good NFL players. The good list is not. It doesn't. So if you have a great pressure to sack rate, you take you take very few sacks relative to the amount you're pressured. That doesn't seem to mean a whole lot. There are a lot of very not great NFL quarterbacks that have had very good college pressure to sack rates. The bad list, however, does seem to have some signal to it in terms of basically it's a list of terrible quarterbacks and Joe Burrow. So Jaden Daniels is in the area of that statistical category that is extremely troubling, which again doesn't, Joe Burrow's there. It doesn't mean you can't be good, but most of the quarterbacks in that list are not, and they're very not.
Yeah, it's the stat of the season. I think it's a little overblown as the only thing.
Of
but
course.
It's also the biggest concern for Jaden Daniels, for sure.
I don't think any statistic is going at this, the guy that we started the show with, right, who's nailed every quarterback evaluation the last 7 years, right? No one number. You're not going to find the number that does that. You're not going to find one statistical data point that says, cracked it.
Oh,
now
I
we've
agree.
Got it. Now we've got the right order every year, right?
That's why I don't want one stat just making the rounds and everybody becomes a one-issue voter.
Correct. But I do think that one stat can be, one stat can be an eliminator, right? You can find a number that says, if you're bad or great at this, it almost certainly means you don't have you don't have a role at the next level unless you are an all-time freaky outlier like this guy.
All the more so because the guys that are not panning out right now, Justin Fields or Zach Wilson are pretty bad at this
Yeah.
at the NFL level.
So, like, if you have that thing, again, it's not, you can't order the draft with that. But you can take a guy and say, this guy's supposed to go 3 overall, and he is really bad historically at this. Are we comfortable with that? And in the room say, yes, here's why, and we're like, here's why he's Joe Burrow, right? Alternatively, you'd be looking at that and going, oh, okay, maybe that changes things, and we should go with another guy instead.
I think I need another fresh look at all the quarterbacks. Do 3 films. 3 films on each guy.
3 films?
A fresh look.
Just
I
a-
like,
just
I
three
like how
film-
Mayock used to say that.
3 film fresher.
I watched 5 films on this guy and was blown away. So I'm going to go, we need fresh films on the QBs in the next couple weeks. Maybe I'll have some fresh takes leading into draft
So you
night.
drafted Jaden Daniels.
Daniels at
even
3.
though-
Now Arizona at 4. Similar conversation for me. If someone else was willing to trade up, I don't think GM Steve is willing to trade up for J.J. McCarthy or Penix. I don't know. I'll tell you who's in the mix is the Giants at 6. I think they've got a debate there as well. Do I want to have the sit at QB for a year while we get rid of Daniel Jones? Like, that's intriguing versus, another potential high-end starter at 6. And then the other teams that are desperate. So now New England's sitting there at 11 with ammo to move back up if they needed to. Broncos at 12, Raiders at 13. Any of those teams want to trade up? If I'm Arizona, I'm thinking about it. I don't think that I'm going to end up doing that from the other angle, though. So Arizona's got their pick for the best non-QB in the draft. For me, that's Marvin Harrison Jr. So we're going Marvin Harrison at number 4 for Arizona. I'll say this, though. I think their debate of trading down, because of what I said about the draft, I think Arizona has a chance to get out of this draft with an extra starter if they trade down. And versus the blue chip receiver. Can they trade down to 8 or 9, or can they trade down to a spot where they could still get one of the top players in the draft? I think it's on the table. For now, we'll keep it simple. Take Marvin Harrison Jr. Puts the Chargers on the clock at 5. And we've got our debate. I'm talking to Harbaugh now, me and Jim.
Jim, in the RV. Maybe that's where the war room will be.
In the RV?
In the RV.
Contrast that to the other LA team that's on the beach.
Yeah.
The beach house.
Somebody, I think it was, what's that guy's name? Sam Farmer, LA Farmer?
Yeah.
Or did he just retweet it? Somebody had an article today anyway that finally gave me a picture of the RV. Because you hear, like, Jim Harbaugh's living in an RV, right?
I didn't hear that thing until you told me. I did not
It's sort
hear
of
that.
put out there as this, like, what a character. Jim just living in the back of a van for a few weeks.
Need
Like,
some Eclipse donut, by the way.
Jim just living in the back of a van on the beach, and you like
Yum.
this old millionaire slumming it because he's just that much of a hardcore football nut. And you're like, there's no way that an RV that Jim Harbaugh is living in is not like nicer than my house. You know what I mean? And so somebody finally got a photograph of the RV, multiple in fact, and it is in fact it's a palace on wheels. It's not what you and I would imagine an RV being, if we had to do it financially.
Is that because they don't have offices there either, like the Rams? They're in trailers, and he just pulls the RV
I'm sure
up.
I do. Yeah, actually, I do think there's some flux as to that kind of stuff. But I feel like there's an element of truth to, Jim just wants to be there and functioning, and he wants to be mobile, But you hear RV, you think caravan on wheels, whereas actually what Jim is living in is like the Ritz on wheels.
I wonder if he's got when you're in an NFL building, they have certain rooms that have like world-class internet.
Sure.
They've got regular internet,
Right.
And then they have the meeting
hardcore,
room
the
with
military stuff.
And I wonder if Jim got the RV hooked up with the military style
Like back,
internet.
you and I are old enough that like a T3 line back in the day, you had the regular internet, and then you had somewhere that had like a T3 line. That's where you got the good stuff.
The good stuff, yeah.
That's where you could get online with the games.
Yeah.
Like a single digit ping.
The internet, it's like it searches for you before you even type it in. Like it's just there. It just load, instant load.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure Jim's got the RV hooked up there, and so I wonder when Jim Harbaugh fires up PFF Ultimate,
Yeah.
is he opening to look at the receivers, or is he looking at the offensive line? Did we talk about the quote that he had about the offensive line?
No.
He had a quote about the offensive line.
Okay. He had another quote as well, which I
Somewhat
think
recently.
was worth mentioning and is correct. He's like, we pick 5 overall, but if QBs go 1, 2, 3, 4, we got the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's a fair point. You do. Yeah? It's a good way of looking at it.
Now he's got the number 2 overall pick.
Right. If yeah.
So he said something to the effect of the O-line's the only position group on the field that everyone else depends on.
Right, at the owners' meeting.
Yeah, said that at the owners' meetings. Right, so receivers and QBs, they can't be good if you don't have blocking, and running backs can't be good if you don't have blocking. And then he's like, well, then I talked to the defensive line, and I said, well, do you like watching 3-and-outs? Or do you like sitting on the sideline for 12-play drives? Do you like? And they're like, oh, yeah.
It was an interesting quote. I don't know that I agree with it, but it is
I mean, it's very coach speak.
Yes.
It's very coach speak.
Right.
Which is the opposite of, say, like the analytical approach of, let's stack up positions, see where value comes from historically and the whole deal. I will say, though, as much as we say creep back toward average on the offensive line, there is an advantage from going from O-line 15 to O-line 3, right? If you have the third best offensive line in the league, and that's been Kansas City the last couple of years.
Yeah.
They've had a top 3 offensive line, haven't had good pass catchers, have the great quarterback. They've won that way. So, I mean, Mahomes has had his best 2 offensive lines, I think, the last 2 years. I know Juwan Taylor had a rough season, but overall, they've done pretty well as a unit. Somebody check me on that. I know they definitely did in 22. Maybe they took a step back in 23 overall. But either way, there's something to it. So my debate here is Malik Neighbors and Joe Alt. I like Neighbors as wide receiver 2. I like Alt as the top tackle. I think they're both blue chip prospects. And I think it's a fair debate for the Chargers. In this one, though, I would lean Neighbors. So that's where I'm going.
Okay.
Malik Neighbors to the Chargers because they have no receivers. We got a big-time playmaker for Justin Herbert. I'm going to tell Greg Roman we're not running the ball 900 times. We get the ball in Neighbors' hands. So Neighbors at 5 to the Chargers.
All right, I like it. The only thing I would say to Jim, if I was at the owners' meeting if I was
counterpoint.
If I was, Jim, interesting take. Have you considered, however, the year where Tom Brady lost all of his receivers and all of a sudden his offensive line looked like ass? Like, the offensive line is absolutely dependent on other things as much as other positions.
It is true. And we said this for years too, right? Receivers getting open.
Yeah.
This was the Jamar Chase thing.
Right.
Receivers getting open does protect the offensive line.
Yes.
Not just on slants, on deep ball too, right?
Yeah.
If you just 3 steps and put the ball up in the air, receivers do protect the offensive line as well.
As does a quarterback. It's at the very minimum, Jim's like, somebody says defensive line. Jim's like, do you like 3-and-outs, right? Well, at the very minimum, it's as dependent as the defensive line. Which is also dependent on the secondary.
And the biggest driver for whether or not you go 3-and-out or have 12-play drives, of course, is the quarterback,
right?
Not so much the line. So I get it, but that's why I'm saying it's all coach speak stuff. But that's what makes football fun, is everything's dependent on each other. Everything's interdependent, right? Versus other sports.
But it is.
Where
it's an interesting point because if he believes that, it is kind of saying, hey, I like offensive line more than receivers.
Yeah. I mean, if he goes Joe Alt, and I'll say this, we did the offensive line show the other day. Zach Frazier from West Virginia, much more of a power blocking center than a zone blocking center, and was talking to Ben Stockwell, our friend over here, and he said power blocking scheme could be like if the Chargers go Joe Alt in the first and Zach Frazier in the second at center. We'll see if Harbaugh really believes that, right? From a build the offensive line standpoint, I think Frazier would be a good fit in the second. All right, let's go a little bit quicker here. My fault. Giants at 6. Now, I love Joe Alt to the Titans.
Yep.
But if I'm the Giants sitting here at 6, now do I consider the quarterback here, Sam?
I don't know. Do you, Steve? GM?
I don't want to do all the talking. I'm trying to make a discussion point here.
Yeah.
Do I consider the thing that's appealing to me with the Giants is the fact that we'll probably have one more year before we get out of the Daniel Jones contract. And I know the data is back and forth on sit a guy versus not. If I could take a J.J. McCarthy and sit him for a year, kind of intrigued by that. He's got tools, and he needs experience. And I know game experience is different than practice experience, but practice and sitting, that's NFL experience. Like, that's a year of practice, a year of learning.
The Giants are intriguing to me because they are a team where I think that if I was guessing from the outside, I believe that what they will do is different to, like, if you were parachuted in there as, emergency consultant GM with all the power, right?
Which could happen.
Yeah. You would do something different to what they're going to do because they are motivated. They don't believe that they have the runway to do it all over again. I think that they believe that they are effectively tied to the Daniel Jones thing from a year ago, and if that doesn't go well enough this year, I'm just not sure that they can start over again now and sell it.
So they have to do well by Daniel.
Well, not yet, kind of, because it's all they've got left. They've basically tied themselves to that. I don't know that they can realistically reboot and start over with a rookie quarterback now. And if it doesn't go well, are they like? So let's say they do that, right? They draft a quarterback at 6 overall. It's J.J. McCarthy. If they stink this, so let's say they do it your way, right? They sit him for a year. Daniel Jones is going to start the year. J.J. McCarthy's going to learn. Are they going to be there for his second year when he actually starts? Like if the Giants win 4 games this year with Daniel Jones, is anyone left in that building to start the J.J. McCarthy era? Or is that the next guy?
That's the next guy.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're not going to do that.
Yeah, so there's definitely a difference between doing what's best by the franchise and doing what's best for
And even if they
me.
start the rookie, even if they draft J.J. McCarthy and start him, and they stink, they're also going to get fired, aren't they? Like, there's no scenario where if they stink this year, they're not going to be dumped, I don't think.
So do I have to draft as hot seat GM?
No, you do what you like. It's your GM.
All right, because as a GM, I'd always do what's best for the franchise.
Always.
Always. All right, hot seat GM here. I believe, and this is interesting, right? Because I just took Neighbors over Alt. I'm going to take Joe Alt for the Giants. I think the offensive line matters more for Daniel Jones than it matters for Justin Herbert, first of all.
Yes.
And I would also say, like, the Chargers already have an average offensive line at worst, right? They already have a solid offensive line. The Giants are still in creep back toward average mode. So I love Rome Odunze, who's the next player on the board. So I'm having a similar debate that the Chargers had. Top tackle or elite wide receiver prospect. For the Giants, I think it's the tackle. For the Chargers, I think it's the receiver, right? For the Bengals a couple years ago, I thought it was the receiver. And so I think these debates are fair, but I think they're situational. And so for the Giants, I'm playing tackle first, and I'll play wide receiver depth maybe later in the draft.
Daniel Jones is a force multiplier for negativity on the offensive line. Like, if your offensive line is bad, he will make it worse by being Daniel Jones.
Yes.
I think we got pretty clear evidence of that last year where everybody else behind that line looked slightly better.
And I'll say this. I mean, I'm a move on from Daniel Jones type of guy because you just move on. But I think it's also fair to say in his 5 seasons, I don't think we've seen has he had a top 15 offensive line? I don't think so yet. He hasn't had top 20.
Right.
And I don't think he's had a top 15 or 20 group of pass catchers, for whatever that's worth. I remember my old Daniel Jones comp was Nick Foles, because there was some level of volatility to his game. And Foles had those periods where he ran into like a good system, right? Hey, I got Chip Kelly and nobody has any idea how to cover this stuff. And I've got the 2017 Eagles where they're loaded and he went on runs. We still never seen that from Daniel Jones. I'd be intrigued by Daniel Jones as a free agent over the next couple of years as a backup with my loaded roster, just in case. But anyway, give me Joe Alt to the Giants. He's going to play right tackle.
You're right.
No problem moving him from left to right. He's very athletic. He'll be fine. I got him and Andrew Thomas now. We'll figure out receiver on the turn. I'm upset as the Titans GM at 7 because I wanted Joe Alt.
Big mad.
So now I have to debate the next tackle on the board. For me, Talise Fuaga. Fuanga? I think somebody told me.
Fuanga?
There's like
Where are we getting the...
just like Tunga Vailoa. There's like an N sound in there. Fuanga. When the beast comes out, we'll get the official pronunciation.
We can't be pulling that kind of audible this close to the process.
Say Fuaga. Fuaga from Oregon State. He's the next tackle on the board for me versus Odunze in the Titans. He's just the next player on the board at receiver. Now, our friend Ramon Foster, by the way, we had a lot of great feedback on Ramon and his appearance on Thursday on the Offensive Line Show. Ramon was saying, as a Titans media person, he wants them to go defense. He wants them to load up on the defense, and that's where his head is at. And so the Titans are sitting here. We've got the top defensive player on the board available, whoever that may be.
Who is that?
I need a...
There's no... I don't want
So
to...
I know it's my mock draft. I can't just talk for 2 hours. I need a...
You say that. I think we give it a shot.
You want me to just go? I'll just talk to everybody.
You've wanted this the whole way. Your 2-hour monologue.
All right,
featuring
you go
Steve.
sit here. Eat a donut.
Yeah. I'll go sit over there on the shelf.
Eat a donut and relax.
Cool. There's no defensive player you're going to take at 7.
I mean, what's the difference? I'm going to take Latu at 8 for the Falcons.
Okay.
What's the difference? I'll tell you what I don't want about Latu. I got to talk to my doctors first. I don't want to, if I'm the Titans.
You got to talk to your chiropractor.
If I'm the Titans, and we just mentioned Caleb Farley, anybody with any injury history in the first round, do I just want to avoid that?
Because you also
completely?
drafted Jeffrey Simmons coming off an ACL.
That's different.
Why?
ACL's that's not a chronic thing. That's not a.
How do you know his neck is a chronic thing?
I don't. That's why I got to talk to my doctors. Call your dad. Get his take on Latu.
On his neck.
Oh, we need to do a boo-boo breakdown heading into the draft.
Yeah, I need to know what his neck was. I just know he had a neck injury and he got shut
We
down.
need to have a draft boo-boo breakdown, whole draft boo-boo breakdown, and how much we should consider.
I'll text the old man right now. He's not busy.
So just say, guy medically retired with a neck.
No, I'm going to need
3
more.
years
He's
ago.
going to need more info than that. He's going to demand to know what actually was wrong with him.
Does your dad want to do our boo-boo breakdowns? Is he good on camera?
He does his own stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's fine. Yeah.
Oh. We don't want to do that, though.
No, certainly not without
don't.
knowing what the injury is.
Not yet. All right, so Titans at 7. Man, it's another one where if I had the choice, I would go O-line over receiver here. Receiver's intriguing just because I love receivers, but they did just bring in Calvin Ridley. Nuke Hopkins has 1 year left. He's not going to keep me from drafting a receiver. But let's just picture this, though. Nuke Hopkins for a year, Calvin Ridley, and Rome Odunze. All right? Let's have this discussion, Sam.
Yeah.
Right? If I get a Odunze in here, we're going to really see what we have from Will Levis.
Are we? Because my tackles are still Nicholas Petit-Frere and Dylan Radins.
No, we're not. We're really not going to. Somebody get me the free agent list, please. There's somebody else in free agency that can step in and creep back to an average. Can we get Ali Villanueva? Can we get him out of retirement?
And probably weighs 190 pounds at this point.
O-lineman can go one of both ways.
Yeah.
One of two ways.
But he was a former receiver, so I'm assuming he's in the slim down mold and he is the...
He was still 280 as a receiver.
Yeah, it's true. I don't picture him walking around looking like Jeff Schwartz right now, is all I'm saying.
So listen, think about this. If Will Levis isn't the guy after this year, a year from now, Hopkins is going to leave. But we got Ridley and Odunze, and maybe another year of Traylon Burks. We got Ridley and Odunze, really, as an attraction for our next quarterback, or as a duo for our next quarterback. And it might be too late to stitch it together at offensive line. It might be too late with street free agents and second-round tackles. I mean, the second-round tackles are workable this year. But you're right. Okay, no shiny objects here, Steve. No shiny objects.
This is such a great receiver class as well that for basically every pick, I am perfectly happy to entertain the argument of we'll get receiver in the second. Because you can get receiver in the second, third,
I want to give
fourth.
Odunze to everybody, though. I really do. Okay, let me go tackle. Give me Fuaga. I got Fuaga to the Titans. He'll play right tackle. If I'm really the GM, Skoronski's playing left tackle.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm putting Skoronski at left tackle. He's going to be a little guy out there at left tackle. Big monster at right tackle. We're good. Give me Fuaga.
It's an interesting...
There's your bookends.
Yeah. All right.
I don't love this for the Titans. I wish Joe Alt was there.
No, you'd be bummed if you were the Titans GM and you could have had Joe Alt and you've got to settle for the next guy or do one of these complete pivots and go wide receiver or defense.
All right, Falcons are next.
You already told us who that is.
Well, I didn't know Rome Odunze was going to be on the board.
Oh, now it changes everything.
I mean, if I'm the Bears at 9, I'm sprinting to get Odunze. The Falcons, does anything that they did in free agency, because before they signed Darnell Mooney, for pretty good money, but before they signed Darnell Mooney, I was like, man, if Odunze was there to go with Drake London, I love that. Absolutely love that. Now, is it too crowded? Drake London, Rome Odunze, and Darnell Mooney, plus the scat receivers. Rondell Moore, Ray McLeod.
And Kyle Pitts, don't forget.
Kyle Pitts is there.
Still getting his targets despite not giving up a number 8, apparently.
But this is GM Steve's dream here, Sam, right? You walk in, you go to my friend Zach. I walk into Zach's office and just say, here you go.
You're welcome.
Now, I might put a lot of pressure on Zach. Score 30 points a game.
You're welcome. I'm going to need records.
We just paid for Kirk Cousins, and we have Drake London, Rome Odunze, Kyle Pitts, Darnell Mooney is your 3, a deep threat, and Bijan Robinson. Good luck, defense. Good luck. I'm just saying, that's intriguing. I don't care what position. I don't care if they play the same position. I don't care if Odunze is redundant to Drake London. I don't care. Figure it out, Zach. Get him out there. Figure it out. And you know what, defense? Could I have gotten you the best defensive player on the board? Absolutely. But Odunze is going to be a game changer for this team.
I mean, I'm in the camp of an elite receiver is never redundant. So I'm fine with that. Now, it's definitely the luxury pick as opposed to, usually there's some sort of balance between need and best player available, right? When they're close, you obviously lean towards the one that's a greater need. So it's definitely a luxury pick relative to, actually needing some edge rusher presence. But in terms of, it's not a terrible pick in isolation, right? Yeah. It's only potentially a terrible pick relative to you passed up on a guy that we need here.
All right, so that's the discussion. That would be great. Now, the scarcity issue is it is very difficult to find edge rushers beyond the first round, especially elite edge rushers. It is much easier to find receivers rounds 2, 3, 4.
Cost.
It is the opportunity cost. So with all that said, as much as I would love to present Odunze to Zach and say, hey, go make this work, I'm going to go with my favorite defensive player in the draft, which is Laiatu Latu from UCLA. This is the place where most people are going Dallas Turner. Again, Dallas Turner is going to go in the first for me, probably in the middle of the first. I don't hate him, but I like Latu the best. I'm going to take him for the Falcons as the top defensive player on the board. We're going to assume the medicals are clear there.
Yes. I
also don't think we're going to run into a situation really quick. So this is what Jim Nagy was saying. If people are a lot of people are putting Latu as edge 2, 3, 4, right? 2 or 3. And so are they doing that based off of film? So are they taking the injury into account a little bit where they don't actually have the information other than he medically retired once?
Right.
And are they taking that into account because they just assume he's going to go around pick 15, middle of the first? Dallas Turner is going to be the first on the board because he has no injury history. Let me put Dallas Turner first and we'll put Latu second or third behind, either behind Verse or in front of him. Or if you just watch the film and assume a good medical record, call it binary, right? Let's just assume he's fine. Would more people have him as edge 1? Or are they somewhat baking in like a draft fall into evaluations?
I think he's just slightly being just kind of misrepresented a little bit. Like I think because of that dynamic previously of, Dallas Turner is the athletic specimen.
You have stats? You have some stats. You just wrote about him, right?
Sure.
Pass rush grade up near the Boses and Garrett and everything.
Yeah, so when you look at just production, he isn't just very, very good. He's actually special. Like he's in the Bosa, Chase Young kind of ballpark. Like his grade last season was 96.3. That's absurd. His pass rush win rate for last season, I think, is the best single season pass rush win rate we've ever seen in college, right? So that's better than all the Boses, the Chase Youngs, the Myles Garretts, better than all of them. He's got 2 seasons with a pass rush grade above 91. Only a handful of guys that have ever cleared that number. And basically all the ones that have done it over a serious season of work, like 300 pass rushes in each one of those years. Guys that have put that grade at that volume of work are mostly NFL Pro Bowlers. Like the ones that miss hard, but the ones that hit are good NFL players right away. And like he's good against the run. His run production last season was really good as well. And then it turns out, okay, the testing at the combine was good, not great, but then his PFF gas says he's actually one of the most athletic on-the-field pass rushers in the game as well. So you put all this together and you're like, all right, we're actually looking at a guy who, from productive standpoint, is one of the best we've ever seen. The only negative I could find, if you're looking at him, is what was the level of competition he went up against? And that, I think, is a fair question to ask, at least, which is, like he didn't necessarily go up against a murderer's row of elite offensive tackles.
Yeah, so I think those are all fair points. I mean, he's a 90th percentile model guy for me. The history of that is the guys you mentioned, the Myles Garretts, the Boses, Aiden Hutchinson, Montez Sweat was up there. Chase Young was up there. Again, say what you want about Chase Young. I think he's battled injuries. When he's been on the field, there's been far more good than bad. Almost all of them are hits. The current iteration of the model missed on Tack McKinley and Felix Anudike-Uzomah, still TBD for the Chiefs. Both guys are above 90th percentile, but the hit rate there is really high for first round, 90th percentile edges. I feel really good about Latu. Just to speak on the age thing really quickly, the fact that he'll be 23 for opening day, I think where you do want to factor that in is where I should factor this in is all those other guys we mentioned were 20 and 21 putting up those numbers.
Right.
So the way you use age, I think, is not so much will this guy get better, but if you're going to use production, as we are, to build our case, the fact that a guy did it at an older age does matter. Again, when I was 24 years old and rookie ball with a 1.6 ERA, good job, Steve, but you're 24. You're supposed to be in the big leagues, not 6 levels below that. So they factor that stuff in, okay? And then when I went up to higher levels, I didn't pitch as well. It just didn't happen.
Yeah.
The age thing does matter. The age thing matters if you're using production as the baseline, which we are. So it's baked in, but I still think the production is so good that I'm okay with taking Latu in the top 10. Again, assuming medical is clear.
The one thing I would say to sort of offset at least the question of what was his strength of competition like, what he showed at the Senior Bowl was dominant. You know, he didn't like. What we saw of him at the Senior Bowl, he was wrecking all-star competition as well. So that part, I think, you can question how much of his body of work is against top-tier tackles, but the evidence we do have against top-tier tackles suggests he's really good.
The other part, too, is describe his skill set, too. Forget the numbers. The skill set is full move set as a pass rusher, full move set to the point where I think he can kick inside and beat guards and be versatile on the defensive line. He
has the broadest tool set of moves of any edge rusher to come into the league in a long time.
Yes.
A long time. Like maybe, as far back as I can remember, but nobody has the variety, the suite of pass rushing moves that he does.
All right, so that's what I'm doing. Taking
one last point.
Go ahead.
Somebody in the chat said Chase Young is not the comparison I want if you're Latu. Chase Young, I think, is actually a good example to use because Chase Young, number one, injuries have been the thing that have essentially stopped him being, a top-tier NFL player. What we've seen of a healthy Chase Young has been good, not great, right? So Chase Young came into the league looking like the best edge rusher prospect we'd ever seen. So better than Nick Bosa at the same team, effectively. Better than Myles Garrett, and those guys obviously have become Defensive Player of the Year type level players. Chase Young came in with a slightly better college resume than those two guys. You're like, oh, this guy's going to be, a walking Defensive Player of the Year. And he hasn't been. He's been worse than that, but he's still been good. Like Chase Young, as a disappointment with the second overall pick, has still been a good NFL player. So the point being, if you're in that kind of category of prospect, like that might be your floor. You might be looking at this, Latu in 5 years' time, and you're going, Latu's just a good player. You're like, yeah, but good. If you're a good NFL pass rusher, that's probably a hit relative to the alternatives.
All right, you got me down the rabbit hole. Chase Young's career. Here we go. Year 1, number 7 in PFF WAR. That was before the injuries started to strike. Right. He was number 7 in WAR as a rookie. Better run defender than pass rusher that year, but he was solid at both. He has not reached those heights yet. However, he was 18th in WAR in 2021, in under 500 snaps. In 2022, missed most of the season, and then last year, played for 2 different teams, what have you, 28th in PFF WAR. Okay, that doesn't sound great. It's not like the number 2 overall pick. That's exactly what you want. But to your point, if you look at that across the career, that is solid. My classification, solid WAR per season, 70th percentile-ish. 4 edge rushers as a starter for Chase Young's career. First rounders historically become solid players 30% of the time. Just 30% of the time, right? But, my 90th percentile guys, they hit about 70% of the time. So, more than double. Anyway, Chase Young's floor it's a good call. His floor has been pretty high. And he's been a solid player. It's not what you want it to necessarily. He hasn't reached the ceiling that you want. But the floor's been fine.
He had 66 total pressures last year, just in the regular season, right? In what was not a career year for Chase Young.
Yeah, he was fine last year.
66 pressures is more than Montez Sweat, Rashawn Gary, Zadarius Smith, Will Anderson Jr., Trayvon Walker, Gregory Rousseau, Van Ginkel, who did have a career year, a lot of other players as well. Like, if that's a not great year for Chase Young, is still getting you 66 pressures on the edge. The point being, if that represents someone like Latu's floor, that's a great pick.
And because I'm obligated to take shots at them at any given point, using PFF WAR, Tyree Wilson and Trayvon Walker are both in the poor/backup category so far. That's how I classify them.
Okay. Yeah.
Poor/backup.
Yeah.
The only two top 10 edges who are in that category. The below average category has Cleveland Ferrell and Kayvon Thibodeau, actually, because of last year.
Oh.
Because he regressed badly there. So that's above poor. Anyway, I'm taking Latu.
Yep.
We're still sitting here. An hour in. We're on pace. We're going to go right up to the – this is why we have the glasses. We're going to go right up to the eclipse.
Oh, to the eclipse. I thought you meant the draft.
Or maybe to the draft. All right, Bears are on the clock at 9. Now I'm taking Rome Odunze.
Now you're running it in.
Now I'm definitely running it in.
Done.
Love this for
Easy.
For the Bears. Give me a Odunze here. A weapon for Caleb Williams.
Yes. Another one.
Anything else to add here for the Bears?
No, I mean, it's not, Keenan Allen was a great piece of business. It's not a long-term solution for them. So get it a long-term solution.
So I got DJ Moore, Rome Odunze on the outside, Keenan Allen in the slot, Gerald Everett, and Cole Kmet as a 1-2 punch at tight end. There you go.
Good backfield, improving offensive line.
Love what the Bears are capable of doing here.
Yep.
Jets at 10. So another one where I think the Brock Bowers pick still makes a ton of sense here for the Jets. Fits both short and long term. I think he's a playmaker. I think at the end of the day, if he goes 15 or something like that, you're going to be like, man, that dude's a top 10 player in this draft. He should have gone in the top 10. So give me Brock Bowers to the Jets.
I like it.
Tight end, pass catcher, playmaker for Aaron Rodgers.
Playmaker. Yeah, I mean, they are effectively they're planning on 1 year. Rodgers has this year, and then we'll see. So let's try and do things that impact this year for the Jets.
Yeah. I also saw somebody say, are we overthinking this because Kyle Pitts, it's felt like an uncomfortable number 4 overall pick, but the dude did have 1,000 yards 1 year. He played in an offense where Arthur Smith just didn't really feature him.
Yep.
So is it a failure of Pitts? We're talking these elite tight end prospects here.
No,
Bowers and Pitts.
I think part of it is it's not actually – it's because of that it's harming Bowers by comparison. Like,
that's what I'm saying, yeah.
But it's actually because he has been that productive and still seen as a disappointment that is why you don't necessarily do it again.
Standards are high.
Yeah, it's like in order to draft a guy that high, your expectations become so unrealistic that unless he is what he was billed as, which is transcendent, somebody that breaks all of the rules and is so effective that you can line him up anywhere and he's going to get, he's going to be the most productive player on the field just across the board. If he's just a good tight end, it's a disappointment at that pick, right? That's the problem. So now if you're Bowers is not coming to the table with this idea that Pitts did, which is you could potentially play him as X receiver and he could be your number 1 wide receiver, forget tight end, right? Bowers is it's a more Travis Kelce style of he'll be a tight end and a slot receiver and, he could be your number 1 option, but he can't play X, and be a number 1 wide receiver and win in all areas and all capabilities. So it's a slightly different idea. But the point being, he might just be a very good tight end prospect, and then the question becomes, how high can you draft that guy?
Yeah, so I'm good. I'm good with Bowers at 10. I'm giving him to the Jets. So we have Garrett Wilson, we have Mike Williams, we have Brock Bowers, and again, assuming they're all healthy, Mike Williams in particular, 3 different types of skill sets, right? We got the route running receiver, we get the mismatched tight end, and we get the big ball receiver. Love that for Aaron Rodgers this year.
Just Alan Lazard erasure.
Alan Lazard is not a big ball receiver. He's a slant guy. We have the Aaron Rodgers slant guy. He's always going to be there on the slant. for Rodgers.
Is that all Rodgers is looking for when
Yeah.
he's doing this GM work? It's like, I just need a guy to get me slants.
Need a slant.
Whether it's, I don't care if it's
Yeah.
Randall Cobb or if it's
Yeah.
Alan Lazard, just a slant guy.
Lazard's a slant
Get
guy.
me a slant
Could
guy.
Michael Thomas be a slant guy? Probably not. There's no experience with Rodgers. He likes his guys. All right, top 10 real quick. Caleb Williams to the Bears, Drake May to the Commanders, Jaden Daniels to the Vikings, who traded up to number 3, Marvin Harrison Jr. to the Cardinals, Malik Neighbors, the receiver from LSU, to the Chargers, Joe Altz to the Giants, Talise Fuaga to the Titans at 7, Laiatu Latu to the Falcons at 8, Roma Dunze to the Bears at 9, and then Brock Bowers to the Jets at 10. That puts the trio of QB-needy teams up all in a row here. Patriots at 11 after trading down, Broncos at 12, Raiders at 13. So now we had this conversation with Robert Kraft. I said, hey, we're still going to take a quarterback. We still have a chance to take a quarterback. We're going to do that. And then we picked up an extra pick. We picked up an extra potential starter at pick 23. So Patriots at 11. To me, it is between J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix Jr. And J.J. McCarthy won the national championship, so he's got to be.
Well, yeah, he won the game.
So he's got to be the guy. I'm fine with J.J. McCarthy here as 4. I'm good with that. Give me J.J. McCarthy to the Patriots at 11.
I mean, I think from the evaluation of the quarterbacks in this draft and from what we know about them and from what we know about, in any given year, the chances of you correctly predicting the order of quarterbacks 2, 3, 4 is pretty minimal. From that process standpoint, this makes more sense. Like trading back and getting an extra first-round pick and still maybe having a coin flip that you got the better guy anyway is better than staying at 3 and relying on the fact that number 3 versus 4 on your board is actually correct.
And the Vikings sitting there at 11 and 23, again, different part of the life cycle for the team. Better infrastructure, better team on paper right now. So if I'm Minnesota, if I'm in their position, I'm more willing to trade up because I have a pretty good supporting cast. If I'm New England, I think I need to build that, so I'm willing to trade down. So both ends, I think, worked for me.
Because that's effectively the decision, right? It's like I will bet you an extra first-round pick that I am correct between my evaluation of number 3 and number 4 on the quarterback board.
Right.
Anybody in the NFL making that bet is crazy because there's no evidence to suggest that in a close year, obviously this is different if, the consensus is the gap between 3 and 4 is like 3 rounds, but in a close year, nobody's good enough to do that. The history says nobody is consistently able to make that determination correctly. So take the extra first round pick to do it. Now, obviously, you don't know that guy will make it to your extra first round pick, which is the problem.
One draft storyline just to highlight here is we do this every year. And even 2 years ago, when Kenny Pickett was the only first rounder, we did spend months talking about Malik Willis in the first, and would Sam Howell be a back end of the first? Would Detroit trade back into the first and pick Sam Howell?
Right.
And then obviously they all went much later than we thought, and then the 2021 class has just busted pretty badly, right? Pretty bad across the board, other than Trevor Lawrence. Will the NFL actually, when they're having all these conversations, actually start saying the stuff we heard from Bucky? The NFL's got an evaluation problem at quarterback. We can't just take flyers on quarterbacks anymore. We just can't do it. What if the NFL comes around to that QBs aren't going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and it really might just be 1, 2, 3, and then they just all start falling, and it's like, we don't want to stretch. We don't want to have that bust for a quarterback. We don't want to miss, and we don't want QB 4. We want to draft a tackle, draft a receiver, and we'll get those guys later. What if the NFL comes around to that, and we're overrating the QBs again?
Yeah, maybe, but the only difference between this year and those years is, again, all the smoke from day one about J.J. McCarthy this year. Like, the NFL loves this guy. That you weren't getting that with Malik Willis. Like, that was genuinely an outside construct that, hey, we need quarterbacks. This team needs quarterbacks. 2 + 2 equals Malik Willis to number 2 overall to Detroit, right? That was an artificial construct that wasn't coming from NFL teams. All the smoke around J.J. McCarthy from day one has been, buckle up. The NFL likes this guy more than you do, so he could go higher than you think he will.
All right, that puts so the Patriots get J.J. McCarthy at 11. Broncos are up at 12.
Yep.
I see the chat, and I know that the Bo Nix sometimes looks like a Drew Brees in the way he plays. Get quick release, throw on the run a little bit, pretty athletic. I mean, Brees was pretty athletic in college. He didn't play an athletic style, but he was like an athletic, in the pocket passer type of player, And so you could see Sean Payton liking Bo Nix along those lines. I don't like Nix as much as Penix, though.
Okay.
And so I think I'm going to go Penix here for the Broncos. So I'm going to go. I don't know if I've seen that pairing yet.
That's going to need some scrolling.
Well, I'm taking the QB. And look, I have to take a QB because we don't have a second round pick.
There we go. Got him.
I'd rather take Penix in the second. I would rather do that.
But also now you're in this world of, I mean, even if you had the second round pick and you rely on him being there.
No. So I'm taking Penix with Denver. Now the Raiders have a situation here where
so as GM you have to consider what would upset Walt the most.
Yeah, so Walt is telling me Bo Nix is Drew Brees, so I'm going Penix. He wants Bo Nix. I'm taking Penix.
Well,
Got to do the opposite.
Now you're going to upset him again because it's the Raiders.
I'm trying to. Well, this is how we go viral because he's going to start yelling at me, and then I'm not looking at it, but he's going to start yelling at me in the chat. You guys are the worst. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And as long as he's upset,
he's been doing that since the Giants pick.
That's good. But that's good for our engagement.
Oh.
Walt screaming at me.
Okay.
So I'm going to take Penix to the Broncos.
Yep.
Now the Raiders still need a quarterback too, but I'm going to say this is the point where I'm not going to necessarily force it. I can actually get the second best defensive player on the board if I'm the Raiders.
Okay.
At 13, and I'll get the quarterback later if I'm Vegas.
Are you going corner because? Well, not just because, but it's an area of need. It's an area you would get the first corner off the board, obviously, and you can choose what that is.
Yeah, that's where I'm going. Quinyon Mitchell.
Ooh.
I'm going Quinyon Mitchell for this one, for the Raiders, over Terrion Arnold. I think it's close between the two. I love Quinyon Mitchell, though, from Toledo, so he's going to be my pick for the Raiders at 13. So, yeah, we're going to start building the defense. I know the defense played really well down the stretch, and Antonio Pierce is back and everything, but I still think they need some help in the back seven there.
Building around Robert Spillane.
Yeah, still building around Spillane. So if I'm the Raiders, I'm going to get the quarterback on the turn, coming back. I'd love to see Bo Nix in the second. What? Because I'm probably not going to pick Bo Nix for any other team.
No, it's perfect.
So I'd rather take Bo Nix in the second. Maybe I'll trade up.
Yeah.
I will do the Panthers pick at 33, by the way, for the people that asked. Saints are up on the board.
Yep.
Now, do I go the desperation that we have at tackle? The desperation that the Saints have at the tackle position.
It's probably not desperate yet until we get a definitive Ryan Ramczyk is retiring. Then it gets desperate.
Yeah, it doesn't feel great there. Does not feel great whatsoever.
When you hear talk of the injury worsening in the offseason, that's not good.
I think I'm going to go tackle though, because I like the depth there. I'll say I know Fashanu is one of the guys I would ignore the model maybe. I mean, I wouldn't really ignore the model in the draft room. You got to stay true to it. But I have to pick 32 players here. He's not an official model guy, but would love Fashanu in pass protection. We'll teach him how to run block. We'll teach him.
How hard can it be?
Yeah.
What is keeping him out of being an official model guy?
The run game.
The run game.
Yeah, his run blocking is absurdly bad relative to other players historically. I will say, I said this the other day, it's because it's, the model's based off of some level of PFF grading.
Sure.
It is, our grades are a little bit more favorable to outside zone tackles, and we're going to see that scheme, the Shanahan derivative, in New Orleans. So it's not like it's easy. I'm just saying, using the grade as a baseline, Fashanu might be able to improve his run blocking in that type of system, where I do think he has a chance to be an unbelievable pass protector.
The model didn't like Darnell Wright for similar reasons, right?
Yeah, Darnell Wright but he was like absurd. He was like a hard no.
Right.
But he was okay as a rookie.
But for run blocking as well.
Yes, his run blocking profile was one of the worst we've seen.
Albeit for very different reasons. Like Darnell Wright's run blocking was strange in that he would bury people, but then he would completely whiff on blocks.
Yes, Darnell Wright, I mean, if you just put his highlight reel on tape, you're like, he's a mauling right tackle. Yeah. But usually when you do that, you're missing the misses, right? You're missing the negative plays as a run blocker. Fashanu he's got a problem with, does he finish? Is he tough enough? Is he strong enough? Functional strength. All those things, I feel like you get a little bit better over time, right? You're young, you're going to get a little bit better. So I'm going to bet on Fashanu's upside if I'm the Saints.
All right.
That's what the Saints do.
That's what they do.
Is bet on upside. So Olu Fashanu, tackle for Penn State.
Usually with a first-round pick in the future going to trade for the guy.
Now, Colts at 15. Do I play Chris Ballard? Dallas Turner's on the board.
He is.
What's his RAS?
RAS. Off the charts.
I don't know if any team actually uses RAS and says, this guy's a 9.5, let's get him. Or if it's just, everyone has their own in-house system for using combine metrics and everything, and then we evaluate them later using the RAS system. But clearly, Colts like their athletes.
Yeah, I forget. That guy, what's his name? Kent Lee Platt, or whatever his name is. He had a thing. He was sort of doing it team by team. Here's how teams have drafted according to RAS over the last X number of years. Like the Colts have basically not drafted anybody with a RAS lower than like 9.5.
Yeah.
In God knows how long.
So when you see that.
Even their quarterback was the most athletic quarterback to ever enter the draft.
So they have their own internal metrics on how to, or just like thresholds or whatever. They're not saying, RAS is 9.6 and let's take them. But, or maybe they are. I'm sure some teams have that as a data point right now too. Is Dallas Turner the right fit here? Now, for me personally, I'd go Jared Verse over Dallas Turner.
For me.
So I have to do this here.
Yeah, Verse is the guy that's kind of getting ignored in this whole Latu versus Turner conversation. Maybe that's just the dynamic, but we're pushing Latu, everyone else is pushing Turner, and Verse is just kind of sitting there on the periphery, whereas actually it is a big three. Like, he deserves to be in that discussion and might, to be fair, be the best compromise. Like, if you're concerned by strength of competition and the neck, or if you're concerned by the guy like Dallas Turner's comparatively limited suite of pass rush moves and the fact that he hasn't been as productive, the Verse is pretty much sitting there right in the middle as a composite or a compromise between the both. Like, he's got athleticism and production, and why not?
So he did it for 2 years at Albany, then showed he could do it at Florida State.
That was his best year. Like,
what's that?
The year at Florida State.
Oh yeah,
was the best. Like, as soon as he stepped up in competition and got better.
My initial concern for Verse, I thought he disappeared a little bit down the stretch in 2022 for Florida State. That didn't happen. Last year, I think he showed he could put together a full season. Again, I'm the GM here, so I'm not just using – I don't even know what their RASs are. I don't know what their what's Verse's. He's pretty good – he's fine as an athlete. I don't know what his actual score is. Shuttle and three-cone are a little bit lower than you'd like to see at that position, but I think overall I like Verse as a better prospect than Dallas Turner. So is that where I should go?
Yes.
By the way, I want to throw this out there. Byron Murphy II.
Yep.
And Johnny Newton. We going with Johnny?
Yep.
The two interior defensive linemen. I am more on board after rewatching and going through them again. More on board with them being top 15 picks. Either one of them. Again, I think the position... I'm not going to get off the rails here. Positional value-wise, I still think it's a little bit lower. I know that the NFL is paying those guys. I think that's more player-driven than market-driven. Could talk about that for an hour. So I don't mind Johnny Newton or Byron Murphy II. I think they could be in play for the Colts here too. DeForest Buckner in the last year of his contract. Do you want to add some depth there? But I think the defensive line board is fitting really well for the Colts. The other piece of it is the cornerback situation that they seem to like.
Yeah.
So I'll let them continue to like their young players. Give me Jared Verse to the Indianapolis Colts here.
All right.
At pick 15.
I like Verse. He's got an interesting technique, but I do think that he is – I don't know if he's getting slept on or if he's just gotten a lot less talked about than the other two. But he does belong in that conversation, I think, between Turner and Latu.
6'4", 254 at the Combine. He's got some power.
Yeah.
Like, he's got that knockback as a pass rusher type of ability.
And the interesting technique
burst
that I'm talking about is, like, he seems to seek contact and engagement more than any other edge rusher, certainly in this draft class. But, like, Dallas Turner is out there trying to long arm a guy every single rep. Latu's out there trying to get rid of engagement every single rep, and versus actively seeking it out to then overpower the guy and defeat him with a whatever, like a rip move or a chop move or whatever it is. But I can't remember, like I can't think of too many other edge rushers that like willfully seek as much contact as he does.
Yeah. So again, I like Verse as a player quite a bit. That puts Seattle up on the clock at pick 16 here. Again, they're in an interesting spot. I don't know if I would force the guard here. I don't know if I would do it. They seem to be, Troy Fontenot or Graham Barton, both as guard prospects, seem to be getting fit here.
By the way,
Seattle.
I'm on board with Johnny Newton going as high as anybody wants to put him since I saw that tweet that you retweeted and I've now retweeted of him literally playing linebacker and intercepting a pass.
Oh, yeah, the high school. I see. You have a few soft spots, Sam. It's guys with any sort of freaky size, speed, length. Like you just, not even that you love it, but you like to compare your hand size to other people and arm length and everything, right? That's a thing you like to do, and you like high school highlights. That's a thing.
Yeah.
So
Big
I know
fan of
that
high
the
school
key to your heart is showing great high school
He's
highlights.
putting a defensive tackle, lining him up as an overhang linebacker and having him drop into the gap and pick off a pass. I'm sold. Take him however high you want. Just, I'll write you the check right now. Put him in there.
We'll see. Maybe we'll end up having a defensive line. We'll see what happens with guests this week. Maybe we'll have a D-line show later in the week. Break it down a little bit further. But both interior defensive linemen, Murphy and Johnny Newton, I think I'm good with both of them. Again, top 15-ish. They're both on the cusp of 295 to 305 pounds, which is a little bit lighter than some of the other successful defensive tackles throughout the last couple of years. Overall, it's a little bit harder for those guys, historically. Defensive tackle for Seattle is an intriguing one. They have Leonard Williams. You have Jaron Reed, Draymond Jones. They've got some depth there. Are they great? They're good. They're good enough probably right now. Enough to keep me from one of the interior defensive linemen. I don't know. Edge, they've invested a bunch of second rounders the last couple of years, but probably still need some help. Is Dallas Turner a good fit there? So to me, I'm between the two tackle conversions at guard, Fontenot and Barton, the interior defensive lineman just for value, and Dallas Turner on the edge.
Yeah, they've left themselves with such a hole in the interior of the offensive line. I can't see how you can get away without drafting one in the first round.
Oh, man. Do I trade down? I would trade down to try to take one of them.
Yeah, I mean, who's trading up for somebody, though?
No, I'm not. I'm not trading up anywhere. All right, give me Troy Fontenot from Washington
To play guard?
to play guard. Yeah.
Even though he's a tackle?
Even though he's a tackle as an evaluator, but if you're the Seahawks, is he not a good guard fit for you?
I don't know. Why would he be, based off everything we know about him right now?
I think.
Or do we just assume that any player that can play offensive tackle well can also play guard? Because that's probably not a
I just think his
strategy.
movement, athleticism. I think in the the wide zone scheme. Look, I'd rather him go to Miami at 21, so I could cheat and do that.
It's not cheating. You just need a reason to pass on him if you're Seattle. I'm just saying,
GM Steve doesn't really want to take a guard this high.
You're kind of, you need a center or a guard. So you're taking somebody this high because you have nobody that's starting quality in your interior trio.
I mean, I always give them Jackson Powers Johnson. I also don't love taking a center this high, but if I knew I could trade down to 20, 22, something like that.
I'm fine with Fontenot. I'm just once it became clear that he actually had prototypical offensive tackle movement and measurables.
Yeah, you want to put him at tackle. I get it.
Why is he a guard?
Just because I'm the Seahawks at 16, right? Like if I was the Bengals at 18, I could put him at right tackle. I'd make him a tackle. But I'm the Seahawks picking right now.
Okay.
So I think he could be a good guard or tackle. I mean, he's also a non-model guy, so it'd be a reach for me. He's on the borderline.
Does it change if he's what position he is?
Yeah, I got to rerun that. I want to rerun it for just tackle to guard conversions, but in a vacuum, it doesn't help moving him to guard.
Okay.
I think I need to test it for just tackle to guard conversions, so it's a little bit more apples to apples. I would say I did that last year for Skoronski, but historically, yeah, it doesn't help much.
We also need to stick with him because both Eli and myself have already clicked.
Oh, you clicked him? Yeah. All right, so give me Fontenot. Eli, I'm doing this for you. Twisted my arm.
Yeah.
Every year there's a team I hate picking for.
Yeah?
This year it's Seattle.
Okay.
It's Seattle.
Cool.
I mean, it's Denver.
You
It's
hate
Denver
it.
because of the QB situation. And
But
then
they're
Seattle.
easy. Like I hate it for the value, but in terms of you have to go in this particular spot because every year there's a team that's like they have left themselves such an acute need that needs filling. You can't go anywhere other than that position, which on the one hand is annoying because
Which is
you're
fine
now,
if it is a tackle, but when it's a guard, it's annoying.
yeah, like well, on the one hand, it's annoying because you're stuck having to pick a certain position regardless of who's on the board. But on the other hand, it makes it easy because you just pick the next best player available at that position.
All right, we're going to Jacksonville at 17. I think they're in an interesting spot here too because I like, again, the defensive tackles and I like the corners on the board here. So I like some of the options here for Jacksonville. They've had a lot of turnover at corner, but Ronald Darby and then coming in as a veteran and then Tyson Campbell in the last year of his contract. I'm really intrigued by Terry and Arnold. Do they go back to the defensive line? They just brought in Eric Armstead to go with Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen. But, you know, Armstead's more of an edge, but he can move around. Do I get that smaller interior pass rusher in a Byron Murphy or a Johnny Newton? Do I go Dallas Turner here? Dallas Turner's fallen to a bunch of teams here.
Yeah.
Which I think is fine. Like I'm more comfortable taking Turner closer to 20 than I am 8.
Yep. Turner is the closest to the thing we talked about at the start of guys we are lower than the consensus. But even then, we're not it's not the Tyree Wilson thing where we're like, we're not touching this guy. It's like, no, we're just second half of the first round rather than the first half.
If I'm sitting in Jacksonville right now, the trouble that I have is the investment that's already been made in Roy Robertson Harris and Devon Hamilton. And then you could say Armstead too. I'm just saying for interior defensive linemen.
Right.
So on one hand, there's already a lot of investment for average play. Armstead's going to upgrade that. Do I want to get a first contract interior defensive lineman right now? Again, the market's going crazy for the high end of those players because I think it's because all the best players just hit the market at the same time, not because the NFL values them more. But the way the market's playing right now, there's value in having a Johnny Newton or Byron Murphy II. The other option to me is corner. Terry and Arnold's the next guy on the board for me. Any thoughts either way?
I mean, I think he could go in a number of different directions and it'd be fine. I doubt anywhere on the defensive line there's a space for those guys. The sunk cost of the other guys you've already paid wouldn't stop me from drafting those guys. Corner, I mean, Tyson Campbell is 1 year removed from a really good season, and then Ronald Darby is the kind of, rental short-term solution at the other corner spot. So, you could draft a corner. He might not necessarily start year one, but he'd be there to take over for Ronald Darby next year and or Tyson Campbell if you're moving away from him if he doesn't bounce back. So anywhere on the defensive line I'd be good with, wherever you think the best value is. Or anywhere in defense, rather.
Anywhere in defense. All right. Normally I'd probably go Arnold here, but recency bias because I was just watching the defensive tackles.
Also, Johnny Newton can play slot corner, so you're good.
Johnny Newton could play slot corner. Give me Johnny Newton to the Jags.
Yeah,
We're winning up front. Give me a nice undersized like 307. You got now we're building things in Jacksonville. Now we've got different body types to block. You got Armstead, you got Newton, Trayvon Walker. This is going to unlock Trayvon Walker
You think, huh?
I'm just saying when you have other he's a good. What's Walker good at? Not winning one-on-ones. He's good as a cleanup guy. Because of his speed and his length. He's good as a cleanup guy. So if Josh Allen and Eric Armstead and Johnny Newton are doing all the dirty work, actually beating blocks, Walker can clean that stuff up. So that actually helps. All right, Bengals at 18. And as I was tweeting through Byron Murphy and Johnny Newton this weekend, Bengals fans, Eli, ears perked up. They were like, man, we'd like that. We like that interior defensive line. I think Murphy could be in play here. I'm higher on J.C. Latham than you are. And I think he could be a tackle prospect. I'm intrigued by the long-term prospects of Latham at tackle. You would say you'd move him into guard. I also don't think that's the worst thing in the world to have him as a guard prospect in the building that maybe could play both positions. The long-term investment at offensive line just hasn't happened at Cincinnati yet. It's been, or at least not through the draft.
If you got him into the building in Cincinnati, you would be building one of those like turn of the millennium offensive lines where everybody was 335 plus.
I kind of like that. They had Amarius. So Mims is in play here too. Marius Mims could be the guy. I was at T-ball the other day and baseball, and one of the fans somebody just unprompted asked me who the Bengals picking at 18. I said, the guy never. I don't know if he's a listener, but he never introduced himself, never said hi. But his son's on the same T-ball team as my 5-year-old, and he asked me who they're picking at 18.
His opening salvo.
He might listen. He might be like, "Oh, that was me." He just said, "Yeah, who the Bengals." Now I had my PFF mug. So again, he either recognized me or he recognized the logo.
With your pullover as well, just logos.
Didn't
everywhere?
have the pullover. No.
Oh, okay.
Good sip of coffee.
So what did you tell him?
I said Mims.
Okay.
It's the first guy that came to mind. I kind of like Marius Mims. I like the defensive tackles.
Okay, Mims, Latham, you can at least kick him in, start him at guard right away. Mims is he even starting as a rookie?
No. Yeah, Trent Brown. Yeah, he'll sit behind Trent Brown, learn, and take over in year 2.
Which is a very Cincinnati thing to do. I mean, they like the succession plan way of drafting rather than this guy starts right away.
We're just building monsters on that offensive line.
A lot of monsters.
But yeah, I think Latham has a better chance to maybe play guard in year 1 and contribute, and then be a right tackle going forward. Whereas Mims, you're probably redshirting. He's probably your swing tackle right away.
Right.
So I don't know if there's one I don't care about the immediate stuff as much.
No, and the Bengals haven't with the way they've drafted the last few years either.
Man, I'm so tempted by Murphy though. Really tempted by Byron Murphy, the second.
Sure.
And I'll also say, here's the argument for Murphy. If the market is exploding for interior defensive linemen, we can't with Joe Burrow under contract, we can't do market explosion type of stuff, right? So when I said last year, hey, draft an edge because those guys make a lot of money, draft a D tackle because those guys are making a lot of money, you need some of those first contract players during the Joe Burrow era. Now, you could say the same for tackle as well, but tackles, I think, a little bit easier to find those starting veterans that can fill in. Am I talking myself into Murphy here?
Sounding that way.
All right. Give me Byron Murphy the second. Give me Byron Murphy to the Bengals.
Done.
Is that okay, Eli? Where are you? Who do you want?
I want Newton.
Oh, you want Newton, so I just...
Sniped.
Oh, sorry.
I'm in love with Johnny Newton, though.
Yeah. Is it because of the high school? He's in love with Johnny Newton. Is it because of the high school tape?
It's got to be.
I think he's going to be like an all-pro in a few years.
All-pro?
He's a stud.
Eli in the booth is calling Johnny Newton as an all-pro, so be happy, Jags fans. You got him at 17. Be unhappy, Bengals fans. You're getting Byron Murphy the second instead. So call it recency bias because I was just breaking down interior defensive linemen, but I got Newton and Murphy going a little bit higher than I had previously. Rams at 19. And this is where so they've got a huge corner need, but also edge. This is where I feel like Dallas Turner could be a good fit for the Rams.
Yeah. That would make sense. I mean, you've got Kobe Turner inside still, even with Aaron Donald retiring. Byron Young last year was productive mostly as a cleanup type of guy. The persistence of Michael Hoyt at the other edge spot, which I feels like has to be some kind of long-term troll job. But there it is.
Are we the number one podcast in the world about mentioning Michael Hoyt?
Yes. There's no way.
There's no other podcast unless it's like a really like Locked On Rams or something like that.
Right.
No, it's a Rams-specific podcast. No one else talks about Michael Hoyt as much as us.
No. Nonetheless, the man plays an inordinate amount of snaps, and anything you could do to reduce that number would be positive for this defense.
So how do we mock draft with that in mind? Do we draft someone away from Michael Hoyt's position to keep his, keep us talking about him?
No, I mean,
or are we talking about him because the guy needs to get replaced?
Yes, we're talking about him because
kick him
for
back
some
inside.
reason a former defensive tackle is being asked to run the seam with slot receivers as an outside linebacker in this scheme. We're talking about him because he's insane what he's being asked to do, and it's not I feel kind of sorry for the dude. Other than the fact that he's earning a living playing NFL football, which in and of itself is a life win, he is being set up to do things that he has no earthly shot of achieving. And it's harsh. I mean, he's being literally hung out to dry by the defensive scheme, which, to be fair, could and should be changing with Raheem Morris departing the building or whatever. But my point being, the things that Michael Hoyt is currently being asked to do, somebody else should be doing.
So the other thing, so they've got Darius Williams and Tre'Davious White coming in at corner. So I think that might help from keeping me from drafting a corner. The other thing I'd consider is left tackle, Alaric Jackson and Joe Noteboom.
Sure.
Should I go Amarius Mims here for the Rams? To me, it does feel like the spot for Dallas Turner. I can stop the slide for Turner here.
Yeah, anyone on the
Fit him in with the
defensive line.
Rams.
Like they could stand an interior or an edge rusher, and Turner represents the best value.
All right, I'll take Dallas Turner here for the Rams at pick 19. That puts the Steelers up on the clock at 20, and 2 classic Steelers, like the guys that they have been linked to, Amarius Mims and Jackson Powers Johnson.
Classic Steelers.
Classic Steelers. Also, J.C. Latham. Have they been linked to Latham?
I've seen as much of that.
He's
but
got
I'm sure
that run blocking power. You put him at right tackle, and you put last year's first rounder Broderick Jones over to the left side.
Let's see what the the PFF mock draft sim: 21.9% for Marius Mims, 20.8% for JPJ, exactly as billed. The next player though is Cooper DeJean at 11.9%, and then J.C. Latham at 6.7%. So is linking happening? Yes. Is it happening at the same level as the first two? No.
All right, so I can debate. So I can grab Mims, put him at right tackle, put Broderick at left, or JPJ at center, and have a Hall of Famer.
Yes, yeah. Right.
Instant Hall of Famer.
Right. Book it now.
I think you draft the Hall of Famer.
You always.
I
draft
mean,
the
there's
Hall of
something to JPJ mauling people and just being just the Steeler, dude, just Steeler. The way he plays, right? That power, the center position.
Yeah.
They want to run the ball. Tackle's more valuable, but I'm locking in a Hall of Famer, man.
You're locking in a Hall of Famer. You are. You are, however, signing up for another season of Dan Moore Jr.
Shoot, man, that's true. The quicker we can get,
And Myles Garrett's not going anywhere.
yeah, but yeah. So, just while we're here, you know those games last year.
Those games last year.
Those games where Myles Garrett had the 35% pass rush win. Just pick. I'm going to talk myself into it. Watch this. The games last year, Myles Garrett, 35% pass rush win rate, 12 wins, but only 4 or 5 pressures.
Yeah.
It's Kenny Pickett's back there, and the ball's out in 2.3 seconds, and the old Matt Canada offense just got rid of the ball pretty quickly, right? Now, though, we've got Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Ball's not going to come out as quick. Those games where Garrett has like 12 to 15 wins but only 4 or 5 pressures, I don't know if those are going to happen any longer with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, one of those guys playing quarterback. Dan Moore's not going to get protected any longer. The grade's still going to be the same, but the pressures are going to go through the roof.
Dan
He's
Moore,
out there.
Dan Moore has averaged a PFF pass blocking grade of something like 18 in games against Myles Garrett during a run of several years where the Steelers have consistently had one of the fastest average times to throw in the NFL, which is about to go to the other end of the scale. Yeah, that does have the potential to become disastrous. There's a certain poetry to the idea, though, that all of a sudden like Myles Garrett starts getting 4 sacks a game against the Steelers. You know, just given the narrative of the last couple of years.
Steelers fans still think Myles Garrett does nothing.
Right. Can you imagine, like, all of a sudden, if all that happens is they change quarterback from one guy that gets rid of the ball quickly to one of two that doesn't, and Myles Garrett's sacks go from 0 against the Steelers every game to 4, there'd be a certain comedy to that.
Pass rush. People are complaining about pass rush win rate. It's not stupid. It is the best way to evaluate individual players and their contribution to the play. It might not affect that particular play, but it's also the most predictive,
Well, more
right
to
up
the
there
point,
with grades
this
for future wins and future sacks.
Right. This dynamic that we've just illustrated is exactly why pass rush win rate is relevant and important, because if you change the quarterback of the opposing team, the pass rush win rate changes the sack total that the guy has. So if all you're doing is looking at, the guy had no sacks, therefore he was irrelevant, right? If you simply change the quarterback in that game, in the same game, he ends up with 3 sacks instead of 0 because the quarterback changed. Like, that is why you focus on, is he winning his rep or not?
All right, man. So did I talk myself into we don't want Dan Moore at left tackle?
Nobody wants Dan Moore. Tackle.
The one thing working for Dan Moore is he hitting year 4 here.
That's when contract year is when you're going to get the best
not so
out
much
of Dan
contract
Moore.
year. That is when you would take a step forward.
Oh, I see.
With all the experience that he has, that's when you would take a step forward.
I thought you're like Dan Moore is going to turn it on for free agency.
I mean, you've got what's his face with the Dolphins last year, playing right tackle.
What's his face? Oh, Austin Jackson.
Austin Jackson. Sorry. Was better. Was more reasonable in year 4. Right? Was it year 4 for him? So
first game against Myles Garrett last season for Dan, 3.5 pass blocking grade.
I know we talked about it.
It's not great,
but we were wrong because Myles Garrett,
0 sacks, of course. So,
oh man, we got all the good fans in here. T.J. Watt is 10 times better than Garrett.
10 times. That seems like a reasonable level-headed approach.
We're expanding our reach here. All right, Mims.
Yeah.
Or JPJ.
Mims. You can't have Dan again.
After all that discussion. So Mims, we're going to move Broderick Jones to left tackle. I like this for the Steelers.
And now we got Georgia bookends, right?
Georgia bookends, yes. All right, so Dolphins are on the clock here at pick 21. Now they could use – now they've been linked with Graham Barton a little bit, some offensive line help. I don't know if JPJ is a fit for them schematically. I think they probably want a more mobile, smaller center in that system, right?
Yeah, probably. I don't know if he's not a fit, but it's not the greatest fit in the world.
Yeah, I think it works the other way. I had no problem with Tyler Linderbaum going to any scheme, even though he's best in a zone blocking scheme. I don't know about JPJ. I mean, they do have Aaron Brewer there too. Imagine if they had both of those guys on the team. One's 270, one's 330.
Difference.
So Brewer's going to be the guy at center. JPJ could play guard though. Could play guard.
Yeah.
I like Barton though as a guard fit, who in a pinch could play tackle and be some Teron Armstead insurance.
I don't know if he can play tackle.
You don't want him to play tackle.
I know he played tackle, but I don't think he can at the next level.
So we got Kendall Fuller, Jalen Ramsey at corner. I'd love the corner value here, but I don't know if it's meshing with the needs around the NFL.
No, you would say they're fairly set at corner, given what they've done. Particularly, I mean, they drafted Cam Smith as well. Was that last year or the year before? Either way, he's on the depth chart there, behind their starters. So I think corner's fine.
I think I'm going to go Graham Barton here for the Dolphins. He's going to play left guard.
Okay.
Creeping back toward average on Miami's offensive line here.
They're a team that I think, I mean, obviously defensive line generally with Christian Wilkins leaving in free agency, but so they've invested in Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb and Shaq Barrett now, all of whom are varying shades of like question mark. Like Jalen Phillips was looking great, but he did was it Achilles he did? Like concerning injury as opposed to, the quote-unquote routine ACL, he'd be back next year looking the same guy. Like he popped an Achilles as an explosive edge rusher. I just not in the first round necessarily, and certainly not the way the board has fallen for us, but Miami needs to draft a pass rusher.
So I'm good. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. When I was talking Johnny Newton and Byron Murphy throughout the weekend here, Dolphins fans, they were very excited. I think they want either of those guys to drop. They would love to be able to replace Christian Wilkins with one of those two guys. The board didn't fall that way. At edge, the next one for me would be Chop Robinson. Is this too high for Chop? I think that'd be a fair discussion, though. Get more burst off the edge. Sometimes you think about how the Dolphins lost. I mean, their defense they had no pass rush, but they were down to fourth and fifth stringers. So that's not the reason why. But you might also lean into, well, if we get injured again, build that depth.
They lost Van Ginkel in free agency as
well. They did
lose
lose Van Ginkel in free agency. Chop Robinson might be 21 would surprise people going that high, but that's not crazy.
Sure.
For these purposes, I'm going to go Graham Barton though, but I think that's at least a discussion for Miami.
Yeah, and as I say, I don't
Give me
know
Barton
that you necessarily do it in the first round, but the Dolphins probably need to add some pass rush in this draft.
I'm with you. Eagles at 22. I know they've been linked to a corner quite often here. They could also just get all the edge rushers. Chop Robinson's next on the board there. The defensive tackles are not on the board any longer. I think I got to go Terry and Arnold, though, for them. Arnold's on the board. They usually get Nate Wiggins in every other mock, right? But in this particular one, the corners are falling. Arnold's usually off the board for me higher. So he's my top corner left.
Cooper DeJean is actually the player that's most drafted by them in the mock draft sim. Now, part of that is I think Cooper DeJean is the number one corner on
That's skewed
Trevor's,
that's skewed by the PFF board.
right, on Trevor's big board, but nonetheless, it is Terrion Arnold is in fact the fourth corner. They're all corners that the people are
That's
giving.
because Arnold's usually gone higher, I think.
66.7% of the picks for the Eagles at this spot are on corner, which is an astronomically high number.
And what is it, since Lito Shepard? Is that the last first rounder they've had, 2002?
Yeah, it was the Shepard-Brown draft, where they drafted both 1-2.
Shepard and Sheldon Brown?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the draft I was just watching last week. Lito Shepard. That was the last time they drafted a first-round corner.
Yeah.
Well, it's all changing here. We're going Terrion Arnold to the Eagles at pick 23.
That was another success story for double dipping, right? Those two guys were like the starters for like a decade.
Yeah. They had someone else, too, I think, from the previous year. Who else would that have been?
Don't care. We don't have that kind of time.
No, we don't. When we do a watch-along, though. All right, now the Patriots are up on the clock. Pick 23 via Cleveland, via Houston, via Minnesota.
Yeah.
That's
Moved
right.
around a lot.
Patriots picked J.J. McCarthy at 11, and now they're sitting here at pick 23. Now where am I going to go? I want offensive playmakers. Is this where we start reaching for receivers that I don't like?
You don't like any receiver? 23.
Oh, I do, but
I think there's receivers worth 23 overall.
no, I didn't mean it like that.
It's just not the one people think it is.
Is Brian Thomas Jr. going to make it in the first round here for us? I don't know.
Well, you
Let's
like
see.
him more than I do, so it's a better chance than.
Yeah, I don't hate.
There's no
Brian Thomas
chance
Jr.
he goes in the first round of my mock.
Now,
Put it that
wide
way.
receiver 4 for me is Jermaine Burton.
Wow. Yes. Let's go.
But
But he's a head case.
we already know. I mean, he's not. I'm not drafting him, Sam.
I don't
I'm
know
not
if you can say
drafting
that
him in the first
anymore
round.
in this world of trigger words and things. He has wide variety of off the field concerns. Is that a better politically correct way of phrasing it?
Don't apologize for telling the truth.
He's a lunatic.
Per sources.
Per sources.
Per many,
All
many
of the sources say he's a lunatic.
Yeah. So Dane Brugler was talking about it this again. I don't want to repeat everything that I've heard, but he's not getting drafted high for a reason.
Right.
So that's that. Everybody that seems to be evaluating Jermaine Burton, because people are tagging me every time somebody's like, "Man, this dude's good," they're tagging me like, "Oh, Steve, this is your guy." Yeah, I think he's the 4th best receiver in the draft as far as talent goes. I don't think I'll ever be justified in that take unless it's like Tyreek Hill falls to the 5th and then becomes this great player.
Which is, I mean, it's possible.
Which is
if
possible.
If he hangs around, I mean, if you're right about the analysis, right, which is he's the 4th best receiver in this draft, and it's a very good receiver draft, and therefore he's a first-round talent. If he just holds it together long enough to prove that, you get proved right.
So yeah, I'm not going to take him this high. I think the Patriots obviously need any sort of playmaking help. The next guy on my board, I don't remember my list. I think it was A.D. Mitchell. I think I had him 5th. Now the model wouldn't go that way. The model would go somewhere else, but I'd take most of the other model guys in the 2nd. So just give me A.D. Mitchell for the Patriots here at 23.
A.D. Mitchell.
Adonai A.D. Mitchell to the Patriots at 23. A weapon for J.J. McCarthy and Jacoby Brissett.
All right.
It's important to me that my supplements that I take are of the highest quality, and that's why for the last few years we've been drinking AG1 over here on the PFF NFL podcast. AG1 conducts relentless testing to set the standard for purity and potency. AG1 is constantly searching for how to do things better. At 52 iterations of their formula and counting, their team is always trying to find better ways to source, test, and aim to find the best quality ingredients available. It's researched and developed by an in-house team of scientists, doctors, and nutritionists with decades of experience in their respective fields. So many people have asked me if AG1 is actually the real deal. And trust me, there's a reason why we've been talking about it for so long. Quality for AG1 isn't just a buzzword. It's a commitment backed by expert-led scientific research, high-quality ingredients, industry-leading manufacturing, and rigorous testing. At each step of the process, AG1 goes above and beyond industry standards. So we've partnered with AG1 for so long because they make such a high-quality product that we genuinely look forward to drinking every single day. So if you want to replace your multivitamin and more, start with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase, your first subscription over at drinkag1.com/PFF. That's drinkag1.com/PFF. Go check it out right now. All right, who's up now? Dallas? Cowboys are sitting here at pick 24.
Yep.
And I'm intrigued by this one because they've got needs. I don't want to fill every need here. They do need a center, though. Boy, do they need a center. And JPJ's sitting there. I think this is the fit, man.
It's the most common mock.
Oh, is it?
Yep, 26.1%.
Okay. I thought JPJ would go higher, that it wouldn't be the most common in the mock draft, Sam. I'm really intrigued by Nate Wiggins being on the board there, too. Just for the corner depth, future-proofing that position.
Future is very
Not even that. I mean, Deron Bland could play in the slot, and Trevon Diggs, and I think they still need corner help. But offensive line, JPJ is the fit here for Dallas. And I know I say, hey, don't just draft all your needs.
Don't draft for need,
Cowboys. But this is top of the board type of player too. It matches up in this particular case. Give me JPJ.
All right,
It's going to help their run game too.
done.
Green Bay at 25. I know everybody's given them Cooper DeJean,
Yep,
right?
by far the most common pick.
Yeah. Now I get that. Got some versatility there for Cooper.
He's going to do his pro day. He's been cleared. He's
Good.
to
I need
go.
that. I need that. Get him into the model because I got him lower than Nate Wiggins. I'd rather Wiggins.
Same.
I don't know where the Packers. I'm not a needs drafter here, Sam, but where are their needs?
Linebacker.
Yeah, I'm not drafting a linebacker.
Fairly desperate need there.
Not drafting a linebacker. So besides linebacker, yeah, we did miss that in the needs draft. Could always use depth on the defensive line. You can always add that. Corner depth, are you trusting Jair Alexander and Eric Stokes going forward? I know they got the youngsters there, Carrington Valentine and Corey Ballantyne. Valentine in particular.
Yep.
But I don't know if I love that corner situation. I would rather have some depth there.
The safety spot that isn't Xavier McKinney is at least a question mark.
Yeah.
The offense is set, really. Offensive line, I guess you could throw a guard in there and be okay. But the offense generally is pretty set. It's the defense where you could add a player and be good pretty much anywhere.
So what you just described, that's a good situation to be in.
Yeah.
If their needs are linebacker, guard, and safety. And the reason why I think it's an uncomfortable drafting spot for the Packers is because the board, there's not a lot of first-round players at those positions, and that's in part because they're generally less valuable positions, right? So their needs, knowing the Packers, they'll draft 2 safeties this year. They'll draft, 2 guards later in the draft to shore that up. But I like the corner depth, and I know they've been getting DeJean, but I'd rather have Wiggins at this point in the draft.
Yeah, I do kind of like DeJean if just because nobody seems entirely sure where they're going to put him yet, and Green Bay's depth or Green Bay's sort of needs is at least across the secondary, so you can it's almost like a total hedge where we just draft DeJean.
He can play nickel.
And then we figure out which spot he's going to help.
He could play safety. Again, why are they putting him at safety? He's very athletic. All right. Just for the versatility, DeJean over Wiggins?
I'm just saying there's some logic there.
That's fine. All right, let's do it. Packers fans, this is the 9,000th mock draft in which you get Cooper DeJean, the corner out of Iowa. Puts the Bucks up on the board at 26. I think it makes the Bucks pick a little bit easier because they have a massive corner need. And I still like Wiggins.
Still like him.
I liked him last pick. So I liked him picks ago. Tampa Bay trading Carlton Davis this offseason. I think outside corner fits with what they need here. Anywhere else that you would consider?
Jamel Dean at one spot. They've got the slot fairly well covered. It's the other starting corner spot that they have a fairly acute need for.
They did sign Bryce Hall.
They did.
I'm still a massive Bryce Hall fan. I'm
less of
be
a
rejuvenated
massive
there.
Hall fan than I was, previously. I'm merely intrigued by Bryce Hall now.
Yeah, still intrigued by him 4 years later. But I'll take Nate Wiggins for the Bucks here at pick 26.
They would be an interesting landing spot for Latham as well as at guard. If you were kicking him inside to play year one.
Yeah.
We've given them receivers before. It's not a need, but I wouldn't hate it if there's a guy you love. But
I think the need and value match of having Wiggins come in and compete at outside corner there, opposite Jamel Dean, makes sense for me. So give me Wiggins to the Bucks at pick 26.
What a pairing, by the way. You've got Jamel Dean looking like a linebacker, and Nate Wiggins with his 170 pounds.
That's one of those. These guys play the same position.
Yeah.
Cardinals are up at pick 27 here. Already took Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4. I was intrigued by potentially trading down, having 3 picks in this one, but we didn't do it with Arizona. I think they can go any which way. Best players on the board. I know you don't like Kool-Aid McKinstry as much. This is my corner run, though. I think Kool-Aid's the best player on the board here at this point.
Okay.
Anyone else that you would consider? I know they've been linked with a starting center. Zach Frazier's the next center on the PFF draft board. They need help everywhere, though.
Yeah, and another spot where, again, J.C. Latham playing left guard for them makes some sense. Like, Paris Johnson's there at left tackle now. They signed Jonah Williams for the other tackle spot. Will Hernandez is one guard. If you wanted a starting spot for Latham year one, put him at left guard next to Paris
Johnson. You want to flip him from right tackle to left guard. We're flipping sides and positions.
Yeah.
I think I'm less likely to incur that risk. We got Sean Murphy-Bunting, who I think struggled as an outside corner last year, and Starling Thomas the fifth heading into his second year. I'm going Kool-Aid here for the Cardinals. They need a corner. I think Kool-Aid's the best player on the board for me. He's up there with Latham. They're both similar. So give me Kool-Aid McKinstry. For the Arizona Cardinals, that puts the Bills up on the clock at pick 28. Who's the next receiver? Who's my next receiver? Somebody help me. I don't know who it was. Troy Franklin is what the model would do.
Yes. Love it.
But I didn't love his film.
Trust the model.
I didn't love it in the
Trust the model.
while watching.
Trust
I didn't love it. I didn't love it.
Trust the model.
And then hedge with Jermaine Burton later.
Hey, I mean,
I'm going to come out of, if I'm the Bills, I'm coming out of this with Troy Franklin and Jermaine Burton.
Buffalo has 11 draft picks. 3 of them should be spent on receivers, including this first rounder.
All right. I mean, it's got to be that. Anywhere else that you would go, it's got to be a receiver.
No, it has to be. I mean, if they don't trade for a receiver using this pick, they have to take one with this pick. And again, indeed, come back and do it again 2 or 3 more times.
A lot of rumors that they're going to trade up. I don't know for whom.
Trading up, I think, would be a terrible idea. Yeah. I would rather trade the pick for somebody in the NFL.
Not all the way up, like into the top 10.
Trading up, period, would be a mistake.
You posted that recently. The Julio trade was from, 26 to 6? 28 to 6? 27.
26. Was it 27? No, 27 to number 6 overall.
And they gave up a lot.
Yes.
Now, I know in hindsight, because the Browns didn't do well with those actual picks.
Right.
It's like, of course they won the Julio trade, but if the picks went a different way, the Browns should have had 5 starters, at least 5 potential starters.
You can't judge it versus what Cleveland got out of the trade at the end of it all. You have to judge it by what is the average return for
the Bills aren't. They're not doing that. They're not trading up into the top 10. If they traded up, it would be like, I think, to 15 or 16 to get Brian Thomas Jr.
Which I think would be crazy.
Yeah, I know you would. Anyway.
But anybody, even if you were, forget Brian Thomas Jr., if wide receiver 4 was anybody else and they were ranked, like this year, of all years, sit at 28, grab whoever the top receiver is on the board, the chances are he's as good as the guy that was drafted 15 or whatever. Anyway, the only gap in terms of tiers in this draft is that top 3, and you shouldn't go after the top 3 because it would cost you so much to do that he basically has to be Julio Jones for it to even be close to working out on your side. So just sit where you are, accept the hole you've dug yourself, draft the next guy, and then draft 2 more later on in the draft and assume that one of them is going to be good, right? One of them will be Dontavian Wicks, and that's fine. As long as you nailed one of them, it doesn't matter if he was your first rounder, your third rounder, or your sixth rounder. Just one of them needs to be good. That's it.
I know people that watch the show will know that we're a little bit lower on Brian Thomas Jr. than others. I would just say I am less inclined to draft him if I don't have a 1 and a 2, a 1 in particular, already there, right? If Stephon Diggs was still on the roster.
If he was your Gabe Davis replacement, fine.
Yeah, if Stephon Diggs was still on the roster, I might take Brian Thomas Jr. right here. And then you say, okay, Curtis Samuel is your slot, and you got Shakir, and you have this depth, and Brian Thomas Jr. can be your deep threat. I feel not good about him being a number 1 type of option. I like him as your designated deep guy.
Right.
Like Detroit, who already has a bunch of those guys. I'm saying, I'd feel much better about Detroit, the next pick, taking him, or Kansas City, or anyone else. So I'm not doing that with Buffalo. Not that Troy Franklin's going to be your 1, but I know you think he can be.
He can be, I think. I have more confidence in Troy Franklin being your 1 than Brian Thomas Jr. anyway.
I'm trusting the model. I don't see what the chat's saying. They're probably upset. Troy Franklin.
Give me 3 receivers. Give me 3
the
receivers
Bills.
you're going to draft for Buffalo. They've got.
And I promise you, I'll take Jermaine Burton in the 4th.
Okay.
If he's still there in the 4th.
You've got 2 4th-rounders. So after that, you've got 3 5th-rounders, 2 6th, and a 7th. So give me one more receiver.
Jacob Cowing.
Perfect.
I'm taking Jacob Cowing from Arizona.
Yep.
Because 2 people have said he's Deshaun Jackson. So that's enough for me.
All right. So
Like
there we
2
go.
actual evaluators, not like my sister.
We got Troy Franklin, Jermaine Burton, and Jacob
So
Cowing.
that's what you're doing, for Bills fans,
Yeah.
right? That's what's going to happen later. We're going to take Jermaine Burton. We're going to get him in the building. We're going to get him in the building.
We definitely need him in the building.
See what he can
in order
do.
for him to be a player.
And then Jacob Cowing later to
Right.
go with Troy Franklin.
Done.
So we have a model guy, trust the data. We have a high upside play, character risk in Burton.
Yep.
And then we have a high upside play in Cowing because 2 people said he's Deshaun Jackson. Therefore, if he becomes Deshaun Jackson, Josh Allen will win a Super Bowl in
That's
Buffalo.
all we need.
The Lions are on the clock at pick 29.
Yep.
The only real need on this roster is corner,
The only real need.
right? Top 5 corners are off the board so far. They all kind of went in a little bit of a run. Next one for me and for the PFF board is TJ Tampa from Iowa State. This has been a much more common play here.
Yeah. It's not
recently.
even really a bad need. It's just it would be the area you want to upgrade first.
Your guy Latham is still there.
He is.
J.C. Latham.
But they have. I mean, what do you? This is future tackle. This is left
This
tackle.
is
It's Taylor Decker.
The potential
Aaron.
here, if you think Latham's a guard, you have Zeitler for 1 year.
Yep.
Latham could play right guard. Taylor Decker has 1 year left. It's going to be tough to pay everybody.
Right.
Would you, at this point in his career, move Penei Sewell to
No.
left tackle
Uh-uh.
and have Latham come in and play right tackle?
Nope. I'm not messing with Sewell. Leave him alone.
Okay.
He's an all-pro right tackle. Leave him there.
So don't mess with that. So that's my Latham discussion. Because if you're the Lions, I wouldn't anticipate Latham being on the board here. I think he'd be off the board.
Probably.
Tyler Guyton is very different, a developmental tackle, still on the board. I'm not taking him though. Do I force TJ Tampa here for that position of need at corner? They have Carlton Davis. They have Emmanuel Mosley coming back, but still need some depth. And neither of those guys are signed beyond this year.
Possibly.
I like Tampa.
What about also? I mean, this is another area where Chop Robinson could be, at least in the
Oh,
discussion.
yes, you're right.
They signed Marcus Davenport, but the last time a team took a 1-year flyer on Marcus Davenport, he played basically not at all. So,
Man, just crush it with the D-line. I know, that could be great. Finding corners later, possibly. That's a tough one. I do love Chop Robinson. Chop Robinson to go with Aiden Hutchinson and Davenport.
Chop's production
brought in DJ Reader.
really good. I'm not
Yeah.
quite sure why he's seemingly sliding.
The comparison I made before the season, and I still think it holds true, is Carl Lawson with a strong pass rush profile, a weaker run game profile. Get him out there 500 or 600 snaps as a pass rush specialist. Give some sort of help to Aiden Hutchinson. They've got a push from the middle between McNeil and Reader now, and whatever you can do, whatever you get out of Marcus Davenport. And I know you've got James Houston, who's shown flashes, when he was healthy, and
Yeah.
just load up on defensive linemen. Kind of like
There's a discussion.
I kind of like that versus the more acute need of corner.
Yeah,
Now, you might
which-
not say that this year with Emmanuel Mosley and Carlton
Right.
Davis, but like I said, 1-year contracts for both of them. 1 year remaining for both guys.
Sure.
I think I have to go Tampa, but I get the chop. I like that as a discussion between the two.
You're in the GM seat less than a couple hours, and already you're like, I got to go with need. I'm going to pass up on my model and my principles and just draft. I feel like I have a need I need to fill.
How do you?
This is how easy it happens.
So how do you do
know?
this data analysis? Like I said, the model has no weaknesses except one.
Okay.
Said this a few shows ago. Second round corners. Don't trust the model for
Doesn't
second
like
round
'em.
corners. Now, at the moment, TJ Tampa is a consensus second round corner.
Okay.
But if I draft him in the first, it's okay. Is that how data works?
So you drafting him in the first.
All I'm saying is
changes what the model
historically,
says about him.
if you draft a model corner and you draft him in the second round, the hit rate's not good.
But are you
DJ Turner?
Are you now in a position where you can change what the model says about a player by drafting him 3 picks earlier?
Not really. That's not how data analysis works.
That's
why
what I'm asking.
It's kind of funny. But yeah, like so the other part of it is, if I'm the Lions, would I trust my ability to get a good corner in the second round? I don't know. So if I took Chop Robinson first, I don't know if I'm getting a corner later.
Okay.
There is some corner depth here, though. You know what? You're right. Chop Robinson it is. There is some corner depth in this draft.
As the billionaire owner, which in this case makes me a little old lady, I would be asking.
Come back to our first interview where I promised you.
Right. I would simply be asking, where have your principles gone? Why have you so readily abandoned what you told me in our interview that was so pleasant over tea?
Taking Chop Robinson.
There you go.
I'm doing it. We're building that defensive line. We're building a monster in Detroit. Chop Robinson as a pass rush specialist to go with Marcus Davenport and Aiden Hutchinson, Alim McNeil, DJ Reader, James Houston. That's what the other teams in the NFC are doing. That's what the Eagles do. It's what the Niners do. It's what we do as the Lions.
Yeah, let's go.
Ravens are on the clock. Oh, wow, there's J.C. Latham for the Ravens.
Nice.
That's a good fit. I wasn't expecting this.
Yeah.
I got to do it, though. You got to do it, right?
Certainly not a bad pick. I mean, they dismantled that offensive line this offseason for some reason.
Yeah, the Ravens, they just sit there. They're patient. They take the best players, and there it is.
You just rely on the draft coming to you. That's all you need to do.
Just let it come to you.
Just
let it come to you.
I'd
put him right. I'd still play him at right tackle. Move Makari around. Let Makari play left guard or something. Yeah, give me J.C. Latham still on the board. Give me him to the Ravens at pick 30. And that puts the Niners and the Chiefs up on the clock. We're a little over 2 hours here.
Perfect.
My meeting was canceled. I had a meeting scheduled with a group of offensive line coaches from a certain NFL team.
A group of them?
Yeah. Well, it was just the offensive line coaches from a team.
Okay.
I wanted to know about the grading.
Ooh.
Maybe they had some questions about their players or the system in general. I don't know, but it's been moved. So I got no heart out. I could be here for the rest of the day.
I can only assume that they were curious because the grades have been pleasant.
Because their grades were so good. They were like, are you sure?
Right. As opposed to the other way around. We're like, justify why you say our guy sucks.
Yeah. Well, that meeting's been moved.
Great.
To the middle of the podcast Thursday, so I probably won't make it.
Outstanding.
All right, Niners are up on the clock at pick 31. Where am I going here for the Niners? I don't know. I don't like either of these picks here.
You don't like them?
No, I mean, everybody keeps trying to give them a receiver to kind of protect against Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, the analysis, the mock draft sim has no real idea where the 49ers are going. They're giving them tackles, corners, and interior offensive line. Tyler Guyton, Kool-Aid, Graham Barton, Jordan Morgan, TJ Tampa. It's chaos. It's chaos.
Most of those guys are off the board.
Right.
Corner. Who was I? Oh, I was considering Tampa. Okay, I would go Tampa here. I'd be fine with Tampa here for the Niners. Corner and O-line. There's no offensive lineman. I'm not taking Guyton.
You're not. You don't like Guyton. You've been
of all the. Listen, he's a red.
A red.
That's a no-go.
Okay.
Red's a no-go. That's Tyree Wilson. That's Trayvon.
This is only relative to his expectation of first, second rounder, right? Like you're not. Are you ever if he's available in the fourth?
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't. I mean, like if he was around in the third.
Like if he was your Blake Freeland.
Yeah, I mean, if he was in the third, I'd be fine with Tyler Guyton.
Okay.
He's in the bucket. He's in the camp of I'd rather let someone else.
Right.
But if I was the Browns, and Bill Callahan told me I could fix him, I'd say, okay, Bill, let's fix him. The upside's incredible for Tyler Guyton. I'm not going to be the one that takes Tyler Guyton personally. I like Tampa as a player here. I don't like many other of the offensive linemen. I really like Cooper Beebe, but I like him as a second rounder. Probably not a San Francisco 49ers fit. Christian Haynes from Connecticut, maybe grab him later as a guard prospect. Could be a really nice fit for the Niners, the Dolphins, some of the other zone-heavy teams, the Texans. So give me TJ Tampa here for the Niners.
All right.
I think he's a fringe first. And don't forget, I was at the game when he had the interception and a pass breakup. So I saw him in person. That exposure helped me put him in the first round. I didn't know I was watching a first-round corner until I started watching him that day in the rain at UC.
And then he became the GM that was able to draft him.
And then here I am, months later, drafting him for the 49ers.
Perfect.
In a hypothetical mock draft on the PFF YouTube channel.
All right, Kansas City Chiefs.
Kansas City at 32.
Except you're also doing 33.
We'll do 33. We'll scroll down and I'll give you some options for the other teams. Browns and Texans. And who else? Who else are we missing?
Browns, Texans. There's one more. And is it just the Panthers now?
Oh, it's just the Panthers, yeah. We'll do the Panthers at 33. Okay, so Chiefs at 32. Who's the next receiver on the board? Give me some playmakers here. I took A.D. Mitchell, right?
You did? Lad McConkey? Or Brian
Lad
Thomas Jr.
or
to
Brian.
replace Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Brian Thomas Jr. with the Chiefs.
Roman Wilson.
With Marquise Brown.
Ricky Pearsall.
Maybe Rashee Rice.
Keon Coleman.
No. I'll let...
Xavier Leggett.
Man, I don't understand Keon Coleman. Why is he so confusing?
Xavier Worthy.
Worthy's intriguing, man. Worthy is intriguing.
And remember, Rashee Rice is busy dealing with some legal troubles.
Where did I put... Who else did I put ahead of Brian Thomas Jr.? I think I put Roman Wilson ahead of him, which isn't crazy. I don't want like a nice, just good route runner for the Chiefs, though.
Because the last one we gave them was Sky Moore.
Yeah, I want home run potential. That's what I want. I want Brian Thomas Jr. We're doing this.
Brian Thomas Jr., huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Give me the home run potential. I mean, Xavier Worthy's got the home run potential, too.
He does.
I'm going to put Brian Thomas Jr. in this first round, though, because why not?
Do it.
Size, speed,
The end.
DeMarcus Robinson comp when I was watching him. Give me Brian Thomas Jr. to the Chiefs. People are going to think this is a crazy mock. That's the one pick that looks out of place, probably. That's it. Everything else is pretty
Right, relative to the
relative to
expectation.
consensus. That
Dallas
one's-
Turner a bit, I guess, as well. Just because
Dallas Turner's a little bit, yeah, but
Just
it's
'cause
not
it's 10
nuts.
spots
Again,
lower.
last year I think I legit put Tyree Wilson at like 25 in my mock draft.
When you say it's not nuts, right? Again, you have to, if this isn't your first draft, right? If you're consuming our content here and
have some
you're
more
going
donut
through
while you're
mock
talking.
drafts
Yeah.
and you're going through this whole process, you're evaluating players, yada, yada. If this is not your first mock,
Uh-oh.
if this isn't the first one you're doing, you've actually experienced previous mock drafts before, you simply can't
Or
say.
real drafts.
Yeah, that's a draft cycle previously. You simply cannot argue that there is no way this happens because every single year we see those examples of there's no way this happens and there it happens and you look like an idiot. So, saying there's no way Dallas Turner slides to 19 is ridiculous. We've seen slides all the time, every single year. It happens. Nobody really knows who it's going to be until we get to the draft and you see it. So this is the world we live in, right? Any of these guys could end up sliding to the second round randomly. I mean, Caleb Williams or whatever. But, half the first round could slide out of the first round. A bunch of these players, any one of them could end up being a third or a fourth round guy that falls through some random reason. We spend the entire draft night going, I still don't know why he's on the board, guys. He's our top guy available. You know what I mean? Like, it happens every year.
All right, Panthers are up on the clock at pick 33. You're absolutely right. Don't have short memories, everybody. Crazy stuff happens. Panthers at 33. I like Lad McConkey here on the turn.
On the turn.
Is that fair?
If you
Now,
were-
I'll field calls.
Yes.
Every
that was-
year, this is what happens. It's a great spot to be because everybody's calling you. Friday night, you're going to trade the pick. Nobody trades the pick. Maybe last year was the first time in a while it got traded.
Well, it
was that-
wasn't. It was the.
It was the
next
second pick. It was the next
Yeah,
pick.
It was 33. but-
Everybody seems to pick 33.
right. It was pick 33, but it was the second pick of the second.
That's what it was. Yeah. Anyway, I like Lad McConkey here. Anything else you'd be looking at?
No, I mean, I was going to ask that if you were Carolina and it happened this way, would you be looking to draft the next receiver on your board, which is probably what they're doing at this spot, and it's good value because the receivers are everywhere, or would you be trying, if somebody's looking to draft in that spot? And generally, whether or not there's a quarterback available, and, Bo Nix at this spot, it's usually a pick that's coveted anyway, right? Because somebody fell out of the first round that you weren't expecting to
Right.
happen. Somebody's sitting there, and a team is going to try and go get him. And you have a day to make it happen because the dust settles. Everyone tries to make it work. So if you're Carolina, do you actually just draft the next receiver available, or do you try and execute that trade and rely on the fact that this receiver class is so deep, even if it costs us a receiver or two on the board, trade back and grab a guy?
I'm always down for trading down here if I'm Carolina, in part because they had to sacrifice so much for the Bryce Young trade last year. I'm going to do something else crazy here. At pick 34, New England is on the clock. What if Denver's next pick is 76. What if Denver says, I'm going to give you next year's second and, I don't know, 121? So next year's second and 121 for pick 30. That's not enough because they value this whole, like, it's a round lower nonsense.
Right.
But if I'm New England, I'm fine with that because I've already established that it's a multi-year rebuild in New England, right? So if I give up pick 34 as the Patriots.
And you already drafted a quarterback.
Already drafted a quarterback. Denver's going to give me, I can't do the third round pick and next year's second just to get to 34, right? But
From where? From 70 something?
So New England's getting, let's say, next year's second and 121. That's the next best pick for Denver besides pick 76, besides their third. So this year, so a fourth and next year's 2. Is that
Fourth and next year's 2.
too
Okay,
lopsided for Denver? Because it is pick 34. It's a fringe first.
What did you say the fourth was?
121.
121. Okay, so that is giving you something in the region of 235 points in the Jimmy Johnson trade value, which doesn't actually get you close to that.
Oh, what about 76 in next year's round 2?
76, 210, and next year's round 10. That gets you in the. That's still not enough, but it gets you closer.
Oh, really? That's a haul to go get Bo Nix if you're the Broncos.
Yeah, I mean, so that pick 34 overall is worth.
Wait, I'm sorry. The Broncos already picked. Did we already pick a? Yeah, we already picked a QB. I'm sorry. Forget this.
By the Jimmy Johnson trade, that's worth 560.
The whole.
points.
I apologize. The whole exercise is invalid.
Okay, great.
But the exercise is interesting if Denver passes on the quarterback in the first round.
Right.
This is the type of stuff that they're discussing. Hey, Bo Nix is on the board in the second round. If we wanted to trade up,
it's firmly on brand for you, though. You would draft Michael Penix Jr. in the first round,
and then go
get Bo Nix in the second round, and have them both battle it out.
It'd be like Senior Bowl practice all over, but every day,
Yes.
every day at Senior Bowl practice. All right, so the Texans, who are the other? Texans and Browns? And is there another team?
That's it, just Texans and Browns.
Texans
42.
are at 42. Who might be available for the Texans at 42?
All of the receivers, but they just traded for Diggs, so that's probably not.
I'll tell you this one. I watched, watching Christian Haynes the other day.
Yep.
The guard out of UConn. I think that's a really nice fit for them. Maybe not that high.
Texans, the Texans beat Texans fans as well. Maybe seem to be a lot higher on their offensive line than I am.
It's weird how that happens sometimes. I
Yes.
feel like the beat writers always are, and the fans never are.
I
right?
think part of it is they're running that scheme that's going to make the line look better.
Well, they just had a good offense. They weren't like they
Right.
ran a good offense. Like are Dolphins fans happy with their offensive line? They just ran a good offense.
And the line wasn't catastrophic. It wasn't bad, but that's not to say that we can't upgrade any of these 5 spots.
Yeah. No, I would add some.
Part of it is because you're dealing with a former first-round pick who's yet to show anything at guard. Like that's
Right. Are they going
that's
to
a
pick up
problem.
his fifth-year option?
But you generally assume, like, if you're a team and a sort of fan base, you view that as he's one of our good starters, even though he's yet to actually show that he can be that guy.
I know the Texans also just signed Miles Bryant, who's normally a slot corner, probably fits in there for them. But Mike Sanderstill from Michigan is the guy that anybody who watches film just absolutely loves because he's your classic
Right.
nickel corner. He can blitz and he tackles. He's tough and he can cover in the whole thing. And he's gets the Mike Hilton comp from everybody because he plays like Mike Hilton. I'd be fine with him.
I like that.
At some point in the second
good
too. I
pick.
think he could be a good Texans fan. They go Texans fans. You got something. And then Browns fans are down at 54.
Yeah.
Now, who could they take?
54.
Tell you what, if Darius Robinson doesn't get drafted that high, I'd be more comfortable taking him at 54.
That would be a steal at 54.
Yeah, I'm just looking.
I mean,
just
again, I'm
scrolling
not saying it
through.
can't happen. I'm just saying it would be a steal.
Yeah, I think he'd be good. I mean, Jermaine Burton.
Jermaine Burton.
I mean, why not?
Why?
If you're the Browns, we're taking all massive swings. If you're Cleveland,
Oh, God.
they lean into the volatility.
I mean, they're a classic. They'd be a good spot for a developmental tackle, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't need. But Jedrick Wills, A, hasn't been the guy yet. B, is reaching the end of that contract. Do you try and take a guy to then replace him next year?
Kingsley Suamatia, Jordan Morgan, Blake Fisher from Notre Dame, who we didn't mention the other day. I think if you got him in the third, not in the second.
Yeah, I don't.
Did you watch Fisher?
Yeah,
No good.
don't love.
They
Where's
have
my
a
guy?
third tackle who barely played, who's also like 6'8", 330.
Yeah,
Second percentile model guy. Yeah, not good.
despite that size.
Yeah. 'Tis the season where guys who are like bright red in the model are getting like 15
Getting hype.
visits. They're getting 15
Yeah.
visits for as third and fourth round picks.
Where's
they're
my
30 visits.
Where's my guy, Paul, going to get drafted? The Houston.
He
tackle.
keeps dropping on the consensus board. He was
Why?
as high he was up in the 40s and 50s before. I think he's in the 70s now.
Why? He's good.
Yeah. I would look at Paul too. I think the second round edge class actually. Now again, if I'm looking at data historically, second round edges don't do anything.
Right.
But the actual players this year, Braylon Trice, very productive out of Washington. I'd be happy with him. Chris Braswell out of Alabama, Marshawn Nealand out of Western Michigan. So again, if you're Cleveland, I think those are all good value plays there. But they're another good solid roster that doesn't have to
They're
fill
one of
any
the best
acute
rosters.
needs.
Yeah, in the NFL, absolutely. They do not need. I mean, they're picking best player available and/or depth. At this spot.
I'll tell you the other enigma for me, because why not? We're pushing 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
That's what we
why not?
usually
Let's
do.
just keep going.
Another enigma. Do you want to do a D-line show? If we don't get any guests, if Sims doesn't get back to me, we can do a D-line show later this week.
Are you going to be on the show later this week, or are you just tapping out to meet with offensive line people?
Oh, no, the show takes priority.
Okay.
We have other people to talk to, the offensive line coaches. I'll be on the show. I didn't have jury duty this week. We pushed it. Post-draft.
Nice.
Pushed jury duty.
Great.
So I'm here.
Perfect.
Thought I might not be here for 2 weeks.
No, it looked like that. Yeah.
But Leonard Taylor from Miami, the enigma,
The enigma.
coming into the season, unbelievable burst and get off, but he only had like 500 career snaps. I was like, hey, breakout player, 2023. Miami bulks him up, slows him down, no more burst to play him at nose tackle. Not as productive. But I still really like Leonard Taylor. I would take him. He's projected in the third now. I would love him in the third because I think he still has all that potential. So Leonard Taylor, the third for Miami, a player for me to keep an eye out on.
All right.
So Austin Booker too. Do the D-line show later this week.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yeah, I think after 2.5 hours of show, we could probably call this one a wrap.
It's a really good show. Send us your emails, nflpodcast@pff.com. Let me know how I did. Give us your feedback, unless you're Walt.
Yeah.
I'm sure we already got plenty. I'll go
Okay.
back through the chat and take all the feedback. Anyway, thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll see you again on Wednesday. Enjoy the eclipse. Wednesday, more PFF NFL podcast.